Oh shit! I think we're live, dude.
Are we?
I think so.
Fuck,
I think
hold on, let me go
like...
get a bag of snacks. I want to dig through that
Yeah,
wall.
that's probably a good idea. Take your time. Holy shit.
I was wondering for a second, I'm like, is he opening a bag of chips? A tampon? Like, what the fuck is...
Well, you know, when I use tampons, they got to be extra large.
I understand. When you get a nosebleed, it's not just a normal thing.
It's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not. When I get a nosebleed, like, there's, like, you know what happens? Like, suddenly, like, blood banks show up, and they're like, dude, come on, you're wasting it. You could have saved several small villages with that.
Well, that's a hell of a question to start up on. I'm not going to read that out loud for YouTube purposes, just in case, but...
Could you give me a sign?
Thoughts on something that rhymes with knack and rocaine.
I'm not sure I get it.
Yeah, it's you know what? I've heard it's a good way to get a lot of energy.
Oh.
And not a lot of teeth.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who asked that. I really don't have any opinion on that subject at all. I never even sold that stuff. You know, I've done a lot of weird shit. That ain't one of them. So I got nothing. Michael Caine. Yeah, Michael Caine is a great actor. But,
that is one of the ways in which Viper the rapper is just stronger than you magically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I don't even know what we're going to be talking about tonight. I just feel like we're hanging out here and we're just going to talk about some old bullshit, and hopefully people get some good questions going and see how much of a rant you can get me on. I figured we should have a contest to see if people, like, we should do a stream where it's like make Thorne rant and just like ask the questions you know are going to get him going and see who can get the longest rant out of me, and whoever wins gets like some kind of like absolutely worthless award.
That's not going to be fair though, because I feel like you could. Okay, yeah, no, never mind. There we go. There we go. Secret history rant on secret history. Ooh,
nah, I don't know enough about that. I have to make half of that up. I don't want to do that. I have to either make it up or read off of like quote books that I've read recently.
Oh,
I don't know enough about that. I got some friends who know a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, one thing, this isn't much to talk about, but I just found out about it listening to a podcast today, and I meant to research it before the live stream. But apparently, you know, the West Memphis 3, yeah.
Yeah, of
David
course. David Eccles, somebody I'd like to get on my show.
Yeah, White Whale. I would fucking love to talk to him.
He's like not technophobic, but he's very, very Luddite-ish, so it's very difficult to...
Yeah, like I understand. The guy was out of this world for how long? Like, I understand. I can't even imagine. But
he's also technically a boomer, so I mean, I can forgive it.
Which is weird to think about, but yeah. But so the West Memphis 3, from what I understood for the longest time, it was, hey, we don't have the evidence anymore. It got lost. It got lost. They finally found the evidence, and which means, you know, for one thing, it will be nice because if all of that is true and they're able to go back through it, you might be able to find the actual person who did it to get some actual justice for the victims' families. But also, it'll be nice to just see on paper, like, why they fucked these people over.
You know, the thing is like, I think he was exonerated on DNA evidence, if I remember correctly. So it's like irrefutable, if I remember correctly. He has absolutely nothing to do with whatever the accusation was, at least in terms of he didn't do it. So
that's what I understand too, but I also understand that he has never received an apology. So
of course
just not. Like, okay, so we're letting you go now. Yeah, just frolic.
I don't know if he was able to sue or not, because sometimes you can sue, but no, you're getting me into conspiracy territories and political territories here, but generally speaking, the state is above reproach when it comes to all of this stuff. And, you know, in their mind, they did their due diligence by having a trial. It doesn't matter how one-sided or bullshit it was.
Eddie's saying that's already happened. That's how it got released.
Gotcha. Okay.
A hair tissue type excluded all 3 suspects.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we do have a super chat here too.
Awesome.
From Azarath. I don't typically join in the conversation on these live streams, but I always tune in and love the conversations. Keep killing it. Oh, thank you, Azarath.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
That was a big old 2-0 spot too. And that actually shows us exactly how much monies that YouTube sucks off the top. Damn, that's impressive. So thank you so much, oh, no, wait, that's because it's Canadian. Now I get it. Thank you so much, Azarath. That's pretty fucking awesome.
I thought that was in Californian dollars.
I know. It's probably the same thing at this point. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. If you have a question or anything or a comment that you want us to read that's, you put $1 in the jar, so that means you get to get me to rant for at least a few minutes. So if you get a question that I can answer, I will answer it for you. Yeah,
and if that comes up later, just tag Yepsen, YEPSEN, and we'll get you a laterer super chat question for that.
Laterer.
So, yeah, appreciate you.
You know, I'm going to pop the chat out and probably fuck up all my windows here. There we go. This way I can actually look at you while I read the chat, or at least make it look like I'm looking at you. Because I really hate lately when I'm watching, like, I'll glance at the stream later on just to see if it came out okay. And, like, the whole time I'm like this because I'm reading the chat. And it's like I want to be able to actually, like, look towards the camera and you. So,
that's actually one of the reasons why I put on the glasses tonight, because I've been rather sensitive about the fact that half the stream I'll be staring over here. And I'm still engaging because I'm still looking at you just fine. But on my third monitor over here is the chat that I have, like, conveniently placed. So fuck it.
Well, my third eye has a nipple on it, so I have a third nipple on my third eye, and that's what I'm always staring at, in case you're wondering. But it's over here because it leans off to the right. And
see, you would have been fine, but then you get it pierced. You damn deviant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, truth be told, I saw Mallrats this week again for the first time in like 10 years. So, yeah, you know.
I feel like there was a joke in there, but I have never seen the movie, so
get off my live stream right now. That movie came out the year that movie came out the year I graduated, and it was pretty much my life. Like that movie is so accurate to being we'll say a late Gen Xer, early millennial, you know, a Zennial, that it's not even fucking funny. It's so perfectly accurate. But yeah, people from both generations can vibe with that movie.
Well, yeah. See, I'm also on the verge of generations, but it's just a different verge. So that might explain why I've never seen it.
Yeah, you're the tolerable version of a millennial. You're not the 30-something. You're the 20-something millennial. We can tolerate you. Maybe it's just because you're so much younger and I'm such a childish asshole at heart, or you're just that mature. I don't know which it is. So,
a little of column A, a little of column B, I think.
I think so. I pride myself on being childish, and you pride yourself on being mature, and somehow the two assholes meet and form a singularity of ass, and it's great.
Yes, we are Voltron, but with ass and fart jokes and occasionally some useful insight into metaphysics and whatnot.
What is the sound of one ass cheek fapping? Yeah, that's probably it. That's probably right.
So we have that laterer question from Azeroth here. They ask, thoughts on transcending reincarnation?
That's one of those questions that is depends on your definition of the terms, you know?
Yeah, from the layman's definition of reincarnation, would that be a fair thing to say?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you tell me the definition if he can. You tell me the definition to go with.
Yeah, from the common perception of reincarnation, I pretty much just see it as a thought form. Or how the fuck am I trying to say this? Don't worry about it. It's only as real as you make it.
All right. So I want to preface this by saying that one of the biggest mistakes someone would make about the things that I tell you is that it's coming from a dogmatic belief system that's based on faith or just something I've heard and I go by. Pretty much everything that I try to talk about, I'm not saying there's never an exception, because I have to be honest with you. There's times where I'm speculating or whatever. But generally speaking, everything that I talk about comes from experiential awareness. That is something I've either experienced or I can deduce. I think Astarte Astaroth, I think it was, either that or a trope, I forget which one it was, likes to say that I'm really good at a priori reasoning, which means following a line of reasoning and deducing somehow something that makes total sense. So I have either firsthand knowledge of something I talk about, or the firsthand knowledge that I have gives me a really good idea of the next thing. Now I say that because it's still up to you with what I'm about to say. Does this fit in your experience or not? That's usually what I mean by, I'm not one of these people who believes that everybody's subjective reality is going to be objectively true for everybody. That's just not how it is. There is a certain difference. But I do believe that when you have a certain kind of experience, when you have you might want to call it a non-dual awakening, when you experience samadhi, when you achieve gnosis, a lot of these things all mean the same thing to different degrees. When you have this awareness and you suddenly dissolve and collapse the illusion of self and other into its Baphomet form, which is all things as one, the union of all opposites, when you have that sort of an experience, whether it be psychedelics, meditation, magic, whatever, certain things about everyday reality begin to unravel. And one of those things that unravels is the primacy of time and space itself. The idea that there is such a thing as time, and along with it is the idea of birth and death. So reincarnation in the classical sense, the sense where it's talked about by most people, is this idea that you are born, you live a life, then you die, and then you are reborn again. However, that I think is a misappropriation or misunderstanding of the concept of reincarnation. I'm not saying that that's not literally what it means in different spiritual tradition, because that is what it literally means in many traditional Orthodox religions. As a Luciferian, I have a bone to pick with most orthodoxy. That is to say, it's almost always convoluted and twisted into a system of control. So you'll have religions that will promise you a better afterlife or a better reincarnation if you follow these specific moralistic ideas, which almost always benefit a priest class, aka the demiurge, if you want to go that Gnostic perspective. Now, reincarnation in that classical sense is generally thought to be along those lines, that you must behave a certain way or you will reincarnate endlessly. And to those who really achieve a certain level of, we'll say, mystical awakening maybe, or whatever, this is sort of a joke. It's sort of a carrot on the stick that gets the normies to keep chasing the religion. It gets everybody to keep going through the process, the practices, to keep going to temples, to keep praying, to keep meditating, to keep donating, all of those things. They promise the moon and give you the finger pointing at it instead, because they can't give you the moon. They can only give you the pointing. They can't give you the moon itself. You're already the moon. As Alan Watts said, they sell you your own watch back to you, and so long as you're willing to let them do that, you deserve it. So reincarnation is given this important role in many religions. One of which is, well, assure yourself a better afterlife, basically. It's the same thing as going to heaven or hell, by making sure your karma is pure now. Karma is not a system of justice. It is rather, well, it's the Tao. It's cause and effect. It is your role in the Tao. And if your action, which is literally what karma means, if your action is, if you have more action, it means you have more ego. You have more of an egoistic attachment to the world. You only act because of ego. When I say act, I don't mean behave or do. That is natural. I mean act as in, I don't like the way things are, so I'm going to change them. That person bothers me, so I'm gonna get them in trouble. Everything is a form of karma in that sense. It is only when action is done without karmic intent, without this egoistic intent, that karma runs clear, that karma becomes invisible, shall we say. I'm going a little bit off the rails here, but karma can be likened to energy, in a sense that energy is only energy because it sort of resists the rest of reality. So a push is only a push because the thing receiving the push resists it. If the push and the pushee are going in perfect harmony, there's no sensation of push. There's movement, perhaps, in relative sense, but there's no relative sense of pressure. So karma, meaning action requires action and reaction. It requires resistance on some level. So reincarnation is this idea that you have set in motion through your action the need to continue this experience from an egoistic perspective. That is to say, you become so attached to who you are that when you go through the experience of your body dying, that the higher self is unable to move on to maybe something completely different than who you are, and will sort of want to play New Game Plus and start another life with much of what you had from the last one, the good and the bad. So reincarnation is this idea that after you die, the finite soul, of course, this is from a more dualistic tradition, this idea. Reincarnation has a very dualistic or non-dualistic perspective. I'm giving you the dualistic one to start with. The dualistic one says that you're an individual and that individual has to keep developing through life after life after life after life after life, so that it becomes purified until all karma is allowed to just go away. So from that perspective of karma, the only way to transcend it would, of course, be to find a way to get rid of ego. And this is why you have many traditions are hell-bent on killing the ego. You know, get rid of you need to have less, you're too much ego. That's why this, and it's very critical of it. It makes it an enemy. It makes an enemy out of a very natural part of the flow of the Tao, shall we say. So that form of reincarnation, there's only one way to transcend that. And that's where they get you to do the practices. So, as I said before, this idea of reincarnation is like a carrot on the stick. What is happening is those who know at the upper echelons, perhaps, if it's a benign religion, one that's orthodox but in a good way, they are offering you this freedom so that you go and you do the practices, you meditate, you live your life a certain way. And at some point, they're hoping that you recognize that it's a game and a trick. They sort of want you to give up, especially in like the Zen tradition. That's been lost, unfortunately, because the mainstream orthodox Zen has lost that. But the traditional understanding of Zen was at some point, you just sort of laugh. If you read the old Zen sutras and stuff, you see them constantly like sounding like they're dissing themselves. This teacher didn't know anything. That teacher didn't know anything. We all know nothing. And it sounds like they're so humble, but no, that's coded language. They're basically telling each other, no, I get it now. I get it, meaning I don't get it. Again, I can't explain it until you've been there.
They're telling you, to achieve the ultimate goal, push this boulder up the mountain and let it rest at the top. Well, you can't do that. The lesson, the ultimate goal is not actually to get the boulder to the top of the mountain. It's to try so many times to put you in a headspace where you finally say, I don't need this. Fuck all that. I'm not going to do it anymore. And by achieving that, you suddenly realize what the entire point was the entire time.
Bingo. Very good. And that's that's exactly right. But now take that into a much more spiritual level. So at the very end of their equation is the same thing that most of these ontologies offer, which is an exit from the cycle of samsara. But here's the problem. So long as your intention is to exit the cycle of samsara, your karma is not clear.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why. What is your reason for wanting to exit the cycle of samsara?
Well, because I don't want to be in samsara anymore. I'm gonna be a good boy so that I can get out of this.
Right.
When I help somebody, it's not because I just want to help that person. It's because I want to achieve those fucking good boy points to get my nuggies up in the not samsara.
Excellent example. Yeah. Is that the whole story? No, but that is a supreme example, especially when you put in that the morality argument on top of it. Absolutely. If the reason for your behavior you claim is to be unselfish, because that's kind of what it requires, you can't be unselfish on purpose. That's silly. What reason could you possibly give to be unselfish on purpose that isn't selfish? All of your acts, especially the ones where you say, oh, look at me, I'm so humble. Like when someone says, Thorne, you're so arrogant. I go, yeah, what are you? That's such a... I know I am, and? What's your point? You're not? You're trying to insult me with this? Like, what are you kidding me? That you just basically told me how humble you're not by telling me how humble you think that you are. This is why I have no patience with the love and light, white light crowds. I really don't, because it's always an act. It's always just a one-upsmanship act, and it's always bullshit, and it always just bores me. Give me the people that are fucking, arm deep in a hippo's ass with shit all over them, fucking doing the Michael Caine powder and all that stuff.
Oh, you're gonna summon her.
I'm going to summon it. That's why I'm saying it. Let me get with all of those people. Give me the hookers, strippers, and blackjack all day long, because in that group you get the hookers with the heart of gold, and those are the ones that actually have what it takes to be a good person in a real way, because it's not about them looking good. It's about them going, I genuinely care about that person. I'm a piece of crap, and I know a piece of crap, so therefore I'm just going to be nice, because I don't judge. And then by doing so, it's actually the opposite. They're not a piece of crap. They're actually a good person, because that's just naturally what's happening. It's not an act. It's a sincere thing. In Taoism, you have Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu, depending on how you like to say it, is the one who says the virtue that knows that it is virtue is not virtuous. So in other words, the person who does a good deed because it's a good deed and does it on purpose absolutely does not benefit from that good deed. They're actually at least one step below the person who just naturally does good things. You can't do that on purpose. Now, oh, I see the fisting hippo.
Did I call it?
You called it. Thank you, Astarte Astaroth.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You didn't actually have to do that. That was mostly for the joke.
I mean, you did have to, but only because you had to, not because we had you to have
it. It's taking a life of its own outside of these YouTube streams. So
it's an egregore. You're creating an egregore, and we love it. The fisting hippo egregore is now a member of our community. It will never be forgotten. Thank you. So when people say my goal is to stop reincarnating, you're basically telling me that you really want to reincarnate a whole bunch. Because this is what we'll say the Buddha, the being known as the Buddha, discovered and only talked about. I shouldn't say only talked about. I'm not familiar with all the lessons. I haven't read everything that's on the subject. Maybe somebody can correct me. But it was always implied that you kind of have to let go, not hold on. You can't work towards leaving the cycle of samsara. The only way to understand what that means is to actually realize you are the whole wheel. The only way to do that is to become the hub and look out and say, oh, I'm all that too. And you realize you're the whole thing. It's all one wheel. You can't exit that. But what you can do is you can stop fixating on the perimeter of it. You can fixate on the center, and now you watch the world, the cycle happen around you instead of to you. And that is what is really meant by transcending reincarnation. Is it's not that you wouldn't necessarily be reborn in another body, per se, because those bodies are going to be constantly getting born and reborn all the time. Or as Ricky likes to say on Trailer Park Boys, bornt. They're constantly going to get bornt. And love that show. We watch that too much.
It sounds like a my dad joke. Just like, why do they call them buildings
Well, they
if
should be
they're
called
not
builts.
built? Yeah, they're not actually being built anymore. If anything, they should be called crumblings. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I'm not quite that old yet. Um, getting there though. So transcending reincarnation, which really means transcending the cycle of samsara, which really means transcending the Ouroboros, which really means all of those transcendences that we're talking about, really means to recognize that you are not being reborn over and over and over again. It's realizing that reality keeps going because it has no beginning, no end. It doesn't move. It's always there. It's you that's moving. You're the reason why it's a cycle. If you recognize your full potential, I shouldn't even say it like that. If you recognize your full identity, you would recognize that just like a film reel contains the entire movie, all of the universe already exists from beginning to end, top to bottom, from Big Bang to Big Squish, whatever the fuck you think it is. Not just this universe, but all universes already exist, fully formed from beginning to end. The reason you see it in a linear time-like fashion is because consciousness, as I've said many, many times, sort of fixates to the exclusion of everything else on one thing and follows that to its end. Like following a flip book, you're like staring at the same spot on a flip book because you see the same pattern there, even though it's different pictures over and over and over again. So you're staring at the same spot on a flip book and it looks like it's animating, but nothing's happening. All those pages are there the whole time. So the cycle of samsara is identifying with that little dude doing cartwheels on the flip book, not realizing that you're the whole show and it's all there already.
You are the paper, the book, the hand,
the one watching it, the whole show.
the light, the everything.
Right. So that's what makes it a cycle. But when you recognize that that's not actually what's happening, and you recognize that that's all happening within this illusion of time and space, when you realize it's not happening to you, when you realize that if I get hit in a car accident, that didn't happen to me, although I'm sure if that ever happens, you'll hear me going, why did that happen to me? Because it would suck. But to be brutally honest, it's never happening to me. It's happening, period, happening. It's happening. It's not happening to anyone. And the happening is even a bad word because happening implies temporality, which there is no such. So consciousness thinks because consciousness is God. It's the monad. It is the non-dual divine. It's the Brahman and the Atman as one. That's what consciousness, so consciousness is part of that. So the absolute one, if we're going with the non-dual teaching, is the absolute one absolutely exists. It is conscious and it is blissful. Those three things, that's it. And everything else is within that. Those are three attributes that the non-dual whole has. But even that is just farts in the wind, really. It's just sounds we're making. So the other understanding of reincarnation is to realize that you are constantly being reincarnated every moment of every day. Every time that you have a thought, that's you reincarnating. Every time that you go, here I am, that's reincarnation. Every time that you say, I am here and nowhere else, that's a reincarnation. So you're reincarnating constantly, especially if you're deep in thought all the time. Now, by thought, I mean egoistic thought, not just, 1 + 1 = 2 divided by square root of pi hypotenuse of pi, blah, blah, blah. That's analytical, blah, blah, blah. But when you're having egoistic habitual thought, that is not the whole of reincarnation, but that is a form of reincarnation every moment. And it doesn't stop until you let it go. And then one might even argue that then it doesn't stop. It's just a longer pause between happening. Sort of like a Buddhist might say that we never stop clapping. It's just that there's at some point, sooner or later, there's a very, very long pause between claps.
So just not cutting anything off, just as a little bookmark, there's another super chat and a bunch more questions whenever you feel like this one has reached its conclusion.
I'm definitely on the last paragraph. So how do you leave that? The same exact way. How do you transcend that? By recognizing that incarnation is an illusion. So reincarnation too is an illusion. Your incarnated egoistic self is an illusion. I don't mean that there's nothing here. I mean that what you think it is an illusion. So thinking that you are, for example, DH Thorne is an incarnated experience. So by it, whenever I embrace that and say, I am me, I just incarnated. When I'm not doing that, I am much more free. That doesn't mean that I get to see everything from an internal perspective yet. It just means that I recognize that I am not just this, and that is the first stepping stone out of the pool, so shall we say. Because there is always a subtle level of incarnation until you are completely set free, which happens every night when you go into that deepest sleep, by the way. It'll also happen really good when the body goes away. Potentially. So to transcend something means not that you do away with it, or that you cease it, or that it stops happening, or any of that. Transcending ego doesn't mean that you suddenly have no ego. It actually means you recognize ego is a habitual action, not a reified being that you are. So to transcend reincarnation doesn't mean that reincarnation suddenly doesn't happen. It means that you realize that there's no one to reincarnate. So you transcend the whole thing, and yet you can still do it anytime you want. It's just like in Western magical systems like the Golden Dawn, where you are meant to realize that you are God. But they'll even come out and sort of tell you. Because like you'll do the lesser banishing and you're sitting there like basically putting yourself in the position of the creator divine. You're learning to see yourself as an incarnation of God. It's Western Tantra. It's the same shit, just remixed with a different oomph. One could argue that's all we ever do.
Everything's just a remix of a remix of a remix of the same fundamental truth, just trying to put it in different perspectives so that hopefully as many people as possible will understand.
Right. And correcting all the corruptions that happen along the way where things get turned into orthodox religions, that people are forced to worship divine beings and gurus and all kinds of bullshit, making offerings to the Buddha, who'd be like, I don't need that shit. What are you doing? Make offerings to yourself. You're the Buddha, motherfucker.
You eat that sacrifice.
You eat that. So yes, you sniff that incense. That's for you. When I light incense, that's not for the gods. That's for me. And mine went out, so I guess they're pissed at me.
If the gods want incense, they can go to fucking Walmart and buy it like the rest of us. These are for me to feel like I'm connecting.
That's right. So, all right. I think we'll put a pin in that one and say that's good enough for now. And if people don't understand something, they can ask for a.
And we do actually have quite a few questions tangentially related to that subject, so I'm sure it will come up again.
Oh, word. All right. So let's go to that next super chat.
Yeah,
super duper.
Yeah, the next one we have is a super chat from Alpha Draconian. Says, thoughts on, quote, beyond the concept of oneness, end quote. I asked a little bit about that, and they expanded upon it, said, once you say it's not one anymore.
Wait, say that again? I think I'm losing it in translation somehow.
I might have also thought they were responding to me, but they were responding to something else. So, Alpha, if you're listening, course correct me a little bit, if you will. Thoughts on beyond the concept of oneness. Once you say it, it's not one anymore.
Oh, it's a Muji thing? I'm not familiar. I know Muji. I know who Muji is. I've watched some of his videos. neither here nor there. He could be talking about the meaning of the word non-dual, maybe is what he was talking about, because there is a propensity in the New Age culture to call everything one. And while that might be in the direction of correct, there's a reason I don't do it generally, except for as conversational, because people don't understand when you say non-dual. Non-dual is a play on the words. It's a recognition that you can't say what it is. If you call it one, if you say all is one, you open up an argument, which is, how can it be one unless there's the possibility of 0 or 2 or more? One, by itself, if there's nothing but oneness, the whole concept of oneness is moot. I'm gonna badly quote my current book that I'm working on and talk about what I call the golden cube analogy. I want you all to sit here for a moment, clear your minds for a second, and I want you to think about an infinitely large, solid, pure gold cube. Now, infinitely large, solid gold, pure solid gold cube. Can anyone tell me? Well, don't answer in the chat because you'll probably be here a little while. Can anyone tell me why that entire statement is oxymoronic? Does anybody know why rationally that makes no sense at all whatsoever? Because I'm going to tell you in a minute.
You know what? I'll jump in first and say it's infinite. The size really doesn't matter because it is all.
Good. That's a good step. You're on the right complete track. You're doing good tonight, Fleshy. Have you been watching my shows when I haven't been paying attention?
You know what? I strive to, as much as possible whenever I'm on this show, to have no thoughts whatsoever and to just let the words slip right through.
That's how I get it. That's how I get it the first time.
Not contaminate me with your evil demon magic, mister.
All right, so two people said it very succinctly, at least the first part. That whole statement was oxymoronic, but just by getting that first statement means you'll understand the rest. Two people said it. Hermit said, a cube defines a boundary, and Eddie Romanov says, it's infinitely large, so it can't have a shape. You are both correct. If it is of infinite size, it cannot have an edge. Without an edge, you can't have a cube shape. So you can't call it a cube. So that's the first oxymoronic statement. But if that's true, that's only that first little slice of paper true. What about the rest of it? So if it's infinitely large, that means that that's the only thing that exists. If it's the only thing that exists,
then there's no me there to observe it if it is all.
Fair, but we can even go worse than that. What is gold if there is nothing that is not gold to compare it against? How can we call it gold if the only thing that exists is gold? We have no, even if we could magically go there and see it somehow, how could we think of gold as gold? It would be like empty space. There would be no distinction. If it was a solid cube of pure gold, of infinite size, there is nothing that is not this gold, which means there's no empty space. So there's no gold and not gold to compare. There's no silver, there's no iron, there's no flesh, no blood, no stars, nothing. Everything is gold. And so it would be as nothing.
You're saying that while it still would be gold in every quantifiable definition, the fact that it exists in a vacuum where there is no other, it just becomes substance to us. It's like all meaning of what gold is falls away and it is just substance. Is that what I'm getting?
You're on the right track, but now we enter another problem. If it is just substance, is there something that is not substance to compare it to? Now here's where you get into some real fun. You can apply that exact same logic even scientifically to the physics that we talk about every day. If everything is a vibration of something, a vibration of what? And is it really a vibration? In order for it to vibrate, that means it has to move through something that it's not. Well, that's difficult to understand. That can't make sense. Can a solid gold cube vibrate? So even those gold molecules, so when you said solid gold objectively, take gold atoms. What are gold atoms made out of? Well, gold atoms are made out of protons, neutrons, and electrons. What are they made out of? Well, they're made out of subatomic particles, leptons and quarks and all this good shit. And those particles have no structure. They are point objects or point-like, because we might not be able to even ascertain what that means rationally. They have no definitive size. Interesting. So what are they? They're detections. That's all they are. They're point-like detections. They are, to the best of our ability to measure, they are a point. They're literally just a "this was here" marker. That's all they are. Well, what is that "this was here" marker? Well, how do you get that? Well, that means you have to have something that is undetected. Does that mean that there's nothing there, though? No, it just means that it goes undetected. Why would it go undetected? You remember what I said before about energy being something resisting against something else? So if you have, we'll say, a solid entity without any empty space in it whatsoever, literal emptiness, the reason that you have even waves like crests and troughs actually implies that it's one solid thing, but there are spaces where, for whatever reason, it interacts and spaces where it doesn't. This implies not nothingness. It implies that whatever is there is going so well with what else is there that there's no detection. So how do I get a clap? Two hands have to disagree on which one belongs where. What happens if they do this? Nothing. You hear nothing. Both hands go, I didn't feel nothing. There's no hand there. So when you look at a space and you say, well, there's an atom over here, but no atom over there, all you're really telling me is that whatever's over there is not interacting with your sensory apparatus. That's all you're telling me. Because we also know, as our ability to sense things becomes more and more precise and theoretical, we realize that empty space is full. There is literally nothing that is empty. Everything is full. Full of what? They've got no word for it. They just call it fields. The ancients, not even that long ago, used to call it the aether. They knew what was up. They knew that light was a perturbation of the electromagnetic field, a specific, we'll say, dimension of the electromagnetic field. So, of course, it looks like waves until it impacts something, then it becomes a point. And it behaves like both when it interacts with something. But it's really neither, because a wave is nothing too. A wave is just the ocean. It's a behavior of the ocean. It's not a thing. Those waves, those crests, those troughs, they're not things. Humans, being the idiots that we are, like to reify everything, because when we can reify a wave, that means we can reify our ego and say that exists and that is me. So long as you can say that is something over there, you can say I am something over here. So we can't help ourselves all day long to say something is something. But none of those things exist as things. That's all a delusion in your head. That doesn't mean that there is no substance, but the point I made before was, if everything is substance, you can't have a concept of substancelessness. It's a great word to say loud. Substancelessness! I think snakes would like that word.
That's that's pretty much how you get all the neighbors to just leave you alone. Just scream that. Scream that in the yard.
Scream it in the yard. Fucking
yeah,
great.
like 99% of the neighborhood will just, okay, well, we're not running him over any baked goods anymore, but then there's going to be one guy who's going to turn into your best friend.
That guy who knows all about the shrooms would be like, no, I know. I'm bringing him some good shit because he knows.
Like, you screamed that, man, while I was on a DMT trip, and let me just tell you, broke some boundaries.
Yeah.
You need a disciple, bro? You want to hit this ranch?
So yeah, so Alpha's pointing out the positive and negative. So you need the positive and negative, not because they are legitimately real. They're just ways of experiencing the same flow. But what is that flow? The flow is also an illusion. You would only know a flow in the classical sense of a flow if there was something resisting the flow. What's resisting the flow? See, the flow doesn't actually happen. A river doesn't actually flow. It's just that there's an infinite number of rivers, and consciousness moves through time, the dimension of time, creating the illusion of a flow. Waves don't flow. If you really know what a wave is, in any medium in which waves occur, there is no actual travel from the point of origin to the point when it diminishes. You can surf that flow, you can surf the wave, but the wave itself does not travel. The wave is a phenomenon of water moving in an elliptical shape. Water molecules going like this because of the disruption of the surface. So as it goes like this, you get water that looks like it's doing this. And the way it does that, because of that spiraling motion, that Fibonacci sequence spiral that happens, whatever shape it really is, because of that loop-to-loop pattern the water molecules are making, you get waves that the crest appears to travel. But the water at the crest of that wave maybe only moves in a little, it really only moves a little circular, little psh, psh, like that. It's like a bunch of little rolls. But the phenomenon of the rolling appears to move sequentially. So it moves in a way that looks linear, like concentric rings. It's pressure waves, yes, but those waves are not things. It's the behavior of a medium. Same thing with sound. All of these things work the same. That doesn't mean there's no pressure differential, but the pressure doesn't imply that it's literally moving. So when something like a wave hits an obstruction, say a sound wave hits a wall or an ocean hits a shore, it's not that it stops the wave. It doesn't stop the wave. The wave is, it's ineffable. It's unspeakable what the wave is. What we call the wave is what the wave looks like when reality reacts to the wave. So that positive and negative concept is only there because in order to reify something, you've got to reify nothing. And the higher understanding of yin yang is that they are both the same thing. The yin is the yang and the yang is the yin, and they appear to be swirling around each other, but really they're the same thing becoming each other. And when you experience them, you see one as one and the other as the other because of your own yin-yang relationship to it. A push is a pull is a push. There's no difference. Outside of classical, perhaps, physics. But you get my point. If I pull on something, if I have a wheel and I go like that, which hand is pulling and which one's pushing? The only reason you'd assign one over the other is because of some sort of preferential position in your own mind. I feel like I'm pulling down with this hand and pushing up with that hand. Are you sure you're not pulling up with that hand and pushing down with that hand? Can you tell the difference? No, you can't. It's just a decision you make. We often say, well, I pulled the wheel this way or I pushed the wheel this way, usually by our dominant hand, based on what our dominant hand does, usually. If I say I turn the wheel to the left, a lot of times what you're really telling me, if you say I pushed it to the left, that's because your right hand had to go up and it felt like you were pushing. But some people, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I think everybody's got a different reason for calling it whichever one it is, really. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'd say I pulled it to the left. I don't even know anymore. See, I'm confusing myself because there really is no way to know. Which is which? They're both right.
I pushed myself that way on the earth, but really I was just pulling against the force of gravity.
Sure. Is the force of gravity a push or a pull? Neither. Neither. There is no force of gravity. Even science will tell you that one. There is no, if a real scientist will tell you that that there is no force of gravity. The force is implied as a secondary effect of the behavior of gravity, of whatever gravity is. So gravity only becomes a force when you have an outside observer watching two things hit each other because of it. Then it's suddenly a force, but it's really a kinetic energy force that's happening. Gravity is not a force. Gravity is, they don't know. They have no clue. They talk about gravitons and all this stuff. They have no clue what gravity really is. They're getting closer, maybe. I doubt it. Gravity is geometry. Gravity is the flow being deviated from its specific vector of travel. That's what gravity is, based along bent space-time. And space-time is one solid whole, so I don't know. It's a big mess, and they don't know. So anybody who tells you that science knows what gravity is, they know how to detect it, they know how to measure it, they know a lot about it, but they don't know what it is. Just like they don't know what a field is. They will tell you that everything is a field of some sort, but they have no clue what that field is actually made of. No clue.
Yeah. We have very limited perspective in all things just by the nature of our existence, where even if we fill in all the dots of all things that we can, for the sake of argument, irrevocably prove this is the way it is, you know, we might draw this many pointed star around this is reality, this is everything we can prove, when I'm using reality too much. The actual reality of the entire thing is one big circle that encapsulates everything, and we only see specific points along it.
No circle, that's a shape. That shape has a definite boundary. There is no circle.
I'm not being literal with this shit.
I'm being literal all the time. No.
Except for when I'm not.
Except for when I'm not. You better know the difference, damn it. Or else I'll get you. Yeah, I once played around with what would be the perfect symbol for my spiritual teaching. And I've played with all these things, and I realized it would just be an empty page with nothing on it. It would be no dot, no circle, no nothing, just, there you go. What is the symbol of our order?
Well,
and just say nothing. Silence. Silence is the definition of our order.
Well, this ebook downloaded way too fast. Just it's
1 kilobyte.
It's just a few bytes, and that all goes just to the header. There's no body in this. It's just blank.
In fact, they had to do some fucked up technological mumbo jumbo just to make it do that.
Yeah.
When I open it, nothing happens. My computer turns off.
On the plus side, everything will run it. Doom can run it. Fuck, if it can run Doom, Doom will run it.
Mm-hmm. Eddie just put it out very well. He says gravity isn't a force in the same way that centrifugal force isn't a force. It's an apparency of force. It's phenomenological, yes. Right, exactly.
Eddie's always kind of on a roll with this shit, but he's on a roll tonight. For, to take it down to some low magic levels for a moment, a couple of the things that he was mentioning while you were talking, consciousness is the vibrator of the cosmic void. Ego is the tampon resisting the heavy flow of gnosis.
I mean, maybe not, but I mean, I'm not saying I get it tattooed on my ass, but I would probably make someone who thinks that we're in some order do it just to make fun of them on the internet. I think that would be worth doing. When we have our cult in the middle of the woods, we'll make sure that all the little ones do that. And we'll say that it's on our butts, but we'll never show it.
So, tell you what, we've been, I just noticed above my head, we're on an hour now. We've done
Motherfucker.
We've done 2 questions.
You guys got me to rant and I didn't even try.
Yeah, it's like you manifested your own reality with that challenge right there at the beginning.
I do. Well, one day, I think when we do like my next 1,000 subs, so get me to 6,000 subs, everybody, and we'll do a special encore presentation of Make Me Rant, and it will be whoever makes me rant the most. Maybe I'll give you the pot from the fucking chat revenue or something. I'll give you a third or something like that. So you get something back. That'd be kind of funny, but that might, no, you know, I can't give anything away because then people would accuse me of just picking one to rant on, and that wouldn't, yeah, so let's not do that.
Well, we'll cook up something else, or it would have to go to a third party to decide.
Yeah, something, I don't know.
But I do kind of like that idea, but so I tell you what, we've been very high level with all of this, and I brought us down a little bit, but let's
talk about butt cheeks rubbing together. Let's do it.
Well, here's
that's actually a good metaphor for reality. You can't have the sensation of two ass cheeks rubbing together without two ass cheeks that are in, you know. Anyway, go on.
You can't have the pleasure of shitting without first having the discomfort of walking around with a bunch of shit.
That's, yeah, true.
So to take it down a peg and just talk about some fun shit for a moment before getting on some of the high level questions again. Alex Estrada asks, stupid question, but opinions on the Virtual Boy.
What the fuck's a Virtual Boy?
It's a video game console or accessory. I don't know. That was like...
Wasn't that old? Wasn't that from the Nintendo era? Wasn't that... Hold on. Let me make sure I know which one you're talking about.
I'm not going to say it's before my time,
I think I know what he's talking about.
My household did not have it.
Yeah, no, I know what he's talking about. It's just, you know, that's why I didn't think of it, because it's just like, no, he can't be talking about that. No, you talking about that fucking fake, yeah, that fake ass 3D VR piece of shit from the 90s. Yeah, I remember that fucking piece of shit. When I worked at Blockbuster, they were trying to hawk that thing for years, and they had it on display, and everyone was like, ooh, the Virtual Boy. And you'd look at it, and you'd get like a headache, because it was just like this dumb, like fake, like 3-dimensional screen. And the Nintendo was like, ooh, this is the future of gaming. And it was like, really? You're going to make me pay extra for handheld graphics that aren't even as good as the worst graphics on the NES? Like, what are you, high? Like, get out of here. Like, you can play this game at the old 1970s arcade where they had the little paper ducks pop up, lit up, that made them look 3D because they were like on different levels of the background, and then you shot at them. No. Virtual Boy, that thing sucked.
What was it? I got the most like fucking flea market Virtual Boy once that my family was like, this is just as good. You'll like this. And it was just a helmet with like a little TV on it. And it was a fucking snowboard game. It had it had like a cardboard cutout, which was the only way you could interpret all the lights. And they would just flash as like, obstacle coming here. You gotta whoop, whoop. It was just, I imagine the Virtual Boy was a little bit fancier than that, but basically just as good.
You know, I had an Oculus Rift, the original one, not the new shit that they had. Not the original, but I guess the Gen 2 one. And my son has like the newer one, and I'm not going to be getting into all this fucking VR shit because it's too, I don't know. As long as Facebook...
You don't want to shoplift from the metal Walmart?
Well, that might be different, but only if I can really make sure, like, I want to make up a fake account with all the fake shit so that they're tracking some bullshit that ain't real, then that's different. I don't need them being able to stare into my eyes and judge how my pupils dilate to tell me, you know, to tell whether or not I really like what they're putting on the screen so they can algorithmically control what I watch. No, thank you.
Oh, bro, but, they're already doing that. Not to bring us into that conversation.
Definitely on the phone, they probably are.
No, they're already doing that.
Yeah, definitely on the phone at least. But I'm not going to make it any easier for them than I already do. How about that? At least not right now. When I'm a full-on boomer in my 60s and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to die soon anyway. Put the fucking goggles on and shoot me up with whatever because I want to get high while I sleep. That's different. But right now I'm still young enough and I have enough cojones that I want to be doing my own life. But anyway, no, my favorite VR ever wasn't Oculus. I consider this VR. Most people wouldn't. It's the old Top Gun, the old, not Top Gun, the old Afterburner video game where you you'd sit in a cockpit-like structure that would spin a little bit and swing you around, and you had the joystick in the thing and you getting flung all over while you like rock and roll the joystick. That was the closest thing to VR I ever got, really, and I loved it. That was like my favorite growing up. That thing cost $1 instead of whatever it was. It cost like $1 or more to play. And man, I would go in there with $20, which would normally buy me infinite games on any other thing, and I'd play that till I puked. It was great. I beat it once.
That was Time Crisis at the arcade for me. Time Crisis 2 happily ate so many of my quarters.
But you know what? That game was, when it first got shipped and delivered, was awesome because the gun was accurate, but then sooner or later some asshole always knocked the lens out of whack. It was like, I know I aimed at that guy, but this fucking controller doesn't work. So then you'd always have that one guy who'd walk up and like, you know, didn't play it right, he would just just fucking go stand right in front of it as close as he could.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my trick would, and I'm sure you would never do this with an actual firearm, but my trick was just to pull the trigger with my middle finger and point down the barrel. So I always knew.
Yeah, go talk to some military shooters that use their middle finger to shoot. No, that's actually a technique people use. Yes.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep. There's actually two finger triggers depending upon what you got. Not many people use them.
That's not like a universal thing, though.
No,
I'm sure.
no.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there are a lot of people who do though, because depending upon how you're taught and what you're doing and why, you can actually make it so that you're using your middle finger to minimize how much muscle contact. Because when you flex your hand, these muscles and everything in here ever so slightly changes the position of the gun. So some people use their middle finger in such a way that they let go of that point of contact, and they're instead bracing the gun with everything else that's stable plus a tripod and all this other shit. So literally they are fingering the trigger, they're pulling it with that finger in a way that minimizes as much as possible the lateral movement. So there is a technique of shooting that uses the middle finger. There are also rock and roll triggers, as they're called, that some people have. They're on airsoft, and not airsoft, but on paintball. They used to have them the most, where it was literally a trigger where you had to use two fingers to pull it. I don't have any experience with that whatsoever, so I can't speak on it, but I know that they exist.
I have heard of things like that, but I thought it was a safety thing where it was one thing that you had to pre-pull with one finger in order to...
I don't know about that. I know that on my Glock, they have their safety trigger, which is really like a fancy way of saying, if you pull the trigger, it'll shoot, but if you don't pull the trigger, it won't shoot. Because the safety is on the trigger, so when you start pulling the trigger, it pulls the safety. so long as your finger's not all the way in and pulling, it shouldn't go off. But if your finger's like just to the side, it won't go off. So it seems funny to a novice because they go, wouldn't that be just meaning you have a trigger then?
Yeah, I gotta say, that seems like, better than nothing at all, but that also seems like it kind of defeats the purpose.
And that is the purpose, sort of. It is actually safer than nothing, yes, but it is. That's why a lot of people, when they have misfires and shoot themselves, is with a Glock, because they reach into the figure. So when you pull your Glock out of your holster, you're not supposed to do it in a way where your finger goes into that trigger guard. You're supposed to practice that enough so that you're like this when you grab the gun, you pull it out, and then you insert as the last move. You don't do that first, which nobody's supposed to do. But I suppose people do it anyway by accident in a hurry. Maybe their middle finger hits it or something. They slip and grab the trigger and it goes off. Whereas a gun with an independent safety probably won't do that as long as the safety's on, because you'd have to actually thumb the safety or whatever first. So I like the Glock technique mechanism myself, but I'm also, maybe it's that Austrian part of me. Rocker triggers. That's what Eddie was talking about. Rocker triggers. That's what it was. Not what I said. Rocker triggers. That's what I think I called them a rock and roll trigger, but yeah.
Oh, the way he described...
It's a way to rapid fire. Yes. And you could probably, yes.
Yeah. The way he described it, I feel like I've heard of that, but I heard it under a different name. It might be different and nuanced, but yeah, anyways.
Yeah, Star Trek Astros says, don't put your finger on the trigger till you're ready to fire. We say, don't put your booger mitts on the bang switch until you're ready to pull the trigger. Yes, perfect.
So, really quick, I forgot we actually had 2 super chats. I was about to get to a different question. So we have the always very supportive Jay Sauber at us with your usual super chat, and again, cannot say enough. Appreciate you being here all the time. Just doesn't even really ask any questions or anything. Just leaves a tip. Oh,
he gets me on emails. That's what.
You know what? I'm just happy he's getting you somewhere, because like I feel like I need to do a dance or something every time. Like, it's too much.
You should. I think he'd appreciate that. Do a little dance. Drink a little water, like in a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. It'd be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was the other one? Thank you, Jay.
The other one is from Alexis23 with a third of a half of that 666. So I'm going to count it and throw up an extra horns. They say advice on shadow work for beginners invocations.
Mm.
You know what? It literally can't hurt you. Just jump in balls deep. Just summon Legion, summon all of them. Go to an abandoned asylum in the dark at 3 a.m. Literally nothing bad can happen. For legal reasons, this is satire.
Thing you could ever. Yeah, this is the safest thing you could ever do. All right, I'm assuming you're either working with the Qliphoth, which is another good way to do shadow work, Lucifer, which is always a great way to do shadow work, or Shadownomicon, which is one of my own personal ways to do it that has done really well for some people, including myself. Since that's a rather open-ended question, give me a minute to sit with it and roll it around in my mouth for a minute.
Yeah.
Assuming you're asking for invocations, I don't work that way, generally speaking. I'm an intuitive type of guy. So I put some invocations in here to specific shadow people. But generally speaking, I'll either write it while it strikes me and then use it, or I will just speak from the heart in ritual. You know, so I might have some scripted stuff that gets me there. Think of it like you got an ugly girlfriend or something, or an ugly boyfriend, and you got to get started with Pornhub, but then you go in there and you're on your own. So you use something to get there with like rituals and shit. Then you hit that point where it's go time, and at that point it should be all intuitive. I said that base as fuck as part of your shadow work, by the way, because if that triggers your mind, like, what the fuck is this guy saying? That's disgusting. That's some shadow. I'm a little bit irreverent because that's how you really get it to stick.
I'm so proud of you for that. That was something that should have left my mouth. I wasn't expecting out of yours, especially after the first hour.
That's a quotes channel thing. But yeah, no, quite literally. Ceremonial ritual is a way to get you there. Then you got to go the rest of the way with your intuitive, natural behavior. Okay, so if I give you an invocation, that's fine. I gave you some. There's a few in here. Will they work like a magic spell? Nothing does. Nothing works that way. Anybody who says that is fine, that's great, it works for them, good for you. But magic is not a machine where you input the right, Konami code and out pops the desired result. People, for whatever reason, probably mostly because of pop culture and prevalence of video games and all this stuff and riddles and mysteries and all this, people get it in their head that magic is a vending machine type of thing or a cheat code. And they think that by chanting up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, select, start, bang, you reincarnate 30 times or some shit. But that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Those chants are the chants, the invocations, all of those things are really effective specifically for the cultures that resonate with them. Now, some things, we'll say mantras, especially seed mantras like Aum, things like that, they're actually a little bit more universal. In fact, they're very universal. You don't need to know what Aum means at all because it engages a certain breathing, a certain resonance, it engages certain parts of your larynx and your voice box and all this other shit. I guess that's the same thing, but it engages different parts of your throat and your larynx and your voice box to make that sound, which by itself resonates a certain way and gets you a certain place. So some of those seed mantras are by themselves powerful as themselves. But invocations really only work like poetry. Invocation's just a fancy kind of poetry that you take a little bit even more seriously. So every once in a while, I'll read a stanza from Paradise Lost. And if I just read it like prose, it sucks. But if I really put myself in a position where I'm identifying with, say, Lucifer when he's first cast out of heaven and ends up in hell, and he's he's saying what's on his mind. And if I don't just say them, but if I speak each word with a resonance and I savor and I just every word and just really just become each syllable and every sound and just lose myself in that in a non-dual way, that becomes a powerful invocation. And you can do that with literally close cover before striking. You could do that with pretty much anything. That was the back of a matchbook, by the way. You could do that with literally anything. Because there's a certain poetry to almost anything that can be said if you look for it far enough. Anyway, that's too much about invocation itself. So there are no specific invocations I would give beyond what I've put in here. It's just not how I do things. However, beginning tips for shadow work. Shadow work isn't just about the parts of you that you know about. It's not just about your bad habits that you're trying to get rid of or trying to find out about. A lot of people will assume that a non-integrated shadow necessarily gives way to a bad habit or bad activity or something. What makes it a shadow is that there's something there that you don't see. And sometimes the biggest shadows are things that you don't think are wrong at all. And how do you find that out? And what does it mean for it to be wrong? So how do we get there? Well, it never ends. First of all, you're never going to finish this, because just like the cycle of samsara question earlier, the reincarnation question, so long as your intention is to solve it, you never will. So the goal should be to treat it like a toy or a game, like a puzzle that, think of it like playing solitaire. Can you ever really beat solitaire? You might beat an individual game of solitaire, yes. But there's an infinite number of games of solitaire there. Because there's an infinite, not infinite, but there's a huge 52 factorial number of ways that that deck of cards could play out. So there's 52 factorial games of solitaire. And not all of them can be won the first time through. And in much the same way, there are some huge factorial number of shadows that you've got to play with. And each time you encounter a new one, it's a chance to get to know your own little egoistic story a little bit better. So when you're trying to begin with the practice of shadow work, people often go into it with the intention of alleviating suffering. That is, to stop feeling bad about something that they do, or to stop doing something so they don't feel bad anymore. Or even worse, they go into it because they think it's going to make them powerful. I always laugh when I note people doing that. There's a lot of people that have gone through this that I've even known since releasing this book that have talked to me, and I go, they're having a lot of success, but a lot of that success is because they're seeking power, and the shadow people are pretending to give them power through it. And yet I can tell their shadows aren't integrated yet, and they know that. But it doesn't work like a magic spell that solves the problem for you. I'm sort of talking around the answer because there is no direct answer to your question. To begin shadow work, you have to be sincere. That is the ultimate beginning, the ultimate answer to your question. Sincerity, to thine own self be true. That is the only way to begin shadow work. The problem is, to be honest with yourself is really difficult so long as you're trying to be. So it's another one of those catch-22 paradoxes that you have to transcend. And the only way you do that is with the carrot on the stick for some people. Some people have to sit there and go, I want enlightenment, so therefore I got to sit on this cushion and meditate all day. I want to integrate my shadow, so therefore I've got to sit there and work with these shadow people all day. And it's not that giving up gives you the goal. It's that only in the giving up do you potentially see what you actually have to do. So it's never that simple. So I hope this helps you a little bit. If you haven't, pick this book up. It'll give you some insights, but by no means is this the Bible for shadow work. It is just one flavor of shadow work. It's meant for more advanced practitioners for certain reasons, but that's only if you intend to do the ritual work. If you just want to read it and get a vibe for it, everybody can read it. just be careful putting into practice what's in here. That's all. The ritual, the communion ritual, can be used for any spirit, not just the shadow people. But it's really good for shadow people. So there's plenty of reasons to pick this book up that have nothing to do with shadows. But hopefully that answers the question, because
that's actually rather serendipitous timing. Somebody just super chatted us and sounds like they're going to bed very soon. They snuck in a question right there at the end from Augustin Galvez. Says, good night to you both. I was doing an evocation of Queen Beleth using incense according to her attributes and reciting her N. The sigil changed color from cayenne to fluorine yellow. What does that mean? Thank you for the super chat.
All right.
Augustin.
So first of all, kudos for recognizing, if it wasn't because you heard it from me or somewhere else, kudos for recognizing that Beleth absolutely embodies a feminine energy, because I believe that Beleth is Belet, or Belet, probably Belet Siri. It's a bastardization of that ancient spirit from Mesopotamia. So Belet means the same thing that Baal means, but in the feminine. It's like saying lady instead of lord. So Beleth is absolutely a feminine, although it will still show as a male for a lot of people. Beleth, someone says queen, they're not wrong. Okay, so good on you for catching that. As for the sigil changing color, so cyan to fluorine yellow, that's a pretty specific set of colors. I would say that probably has to do with a shift in chakra. Most likely, it was probably trying to guide your attention to something in the chakra. Maybe that's just a subtle guess. Cyan is sort of like throat, which makes sense because Beleth is absolutely has a lot to do with communication. It has a lot to do with projection of intention, power, and things like that of that sort. To be beloved and feared is one of the things that Queen or King Beleth will teach. So something to do with the throat chakra is absolutely very likely. But going to fluorine, I'd have to look that up to see what color that is. But if we're talking a shade of yellow, let me look it up just to make sure. I think it would be like a greenish yellow. Let me see. Yeah, it's like a golden, sort of like a golden yellow. Is that right? I don't know, Fleshy. Maybe you know. But it looks like a greenish, goldish yellow. It's like almost pea yellow. And you must be muted or something because I don't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, almost kind of like a burnt honey color to me.
Yeah, because fluorine itself is that color, and I have actually some stones. I have citrine, which is very similar to that color. But yeah, fluorine yellow speaks to me mostly of the solar plexus. Depending upon the shade, if it was more greenish, it's talking about uniting something to do with your solar plexus and your heart, probably. Could be your, if it's more of an orange, that's more of a sacral and a solar plexus issue. It's sort of telling you maybe, this is just my intuitive approach. I don't like giving people specifics on stuff like this because your symbolism may mean something completely different than mine, by the way. Mm-hmm. But my symbolism saying that this has to do with maybe either it's telling you to look into your own chakras and pay attention to the solar plexus region of your chakra energy system, or it could also mean that what began as being something that was absorbing or reflecting the energy of the throat chakra or the color associated with it shifted to that solar plexus version. So maybe it was, depending upon your thoughts, it was either drawing that energy in or projecting it. Really depends on how you think about it. That's how I would approach it personally. If I saw the same thing now, most of the time what you're seeing is an artifact that has to do with the way that your eyes see things. The contrast between the sigil and the paper creates a potential for hallucination. That hallucination is a doorway to higher sight. So all of this happens on 3 levels. You have the really, really mundane level, which is Thorne, you do realize that auras is just what happens when your eyeballs, when the cells in the back of your eye burn out because of the contrast, and so it creates halos around things, right? And they go, yeah, I'm not doubting that. Well, then why are you saying that auras can be seen like they mean something? Because what happens is that hallucination that you're seeing can open a doorway to a higher interpretation that is, yes, imaginary, but that imagination is a projected overlay that signifies something else. Does that mean it will have a one-for-one objective truth? No, but it's sort of like when someone asks you a question and Fleshpriest says, that tells me more about you by the way you asked the question than by the answer I would give. It's sort of like that.
It's like, bro, why are you worried about being happy? You know, it's all just chemicals being released by your brain, right?
Good way to say it. Yeah. So there's that level, but then there is but what is that experience of happiness mean? So look at this on multiple levels. Realize that it is your eyes creating a visual artifact via hallucination, but then that hallucination means something. You're picking up on that hallucination synchronistically for a reason. And that synchronistic revelation is what you got to focus your attention on, what you're doing. So just don't take it literally. Don't sit there and try to think to yourself, the sigil completely changed. You perceived something, yes. But objectively, nothing changed. Nothing happened. So it's sort of like I say when you got a ghost in the house, right? And something falls off a shelf and you go, oh, that's the ghost. No. The ghost wasn't the thing falling off the shelf, nor did the ghost do that. That thing was always going to fall off the shelf, probably. Why? I don't know. Maybe sometimes it's something weird that happens. The ghost was the fact that you put two and two together and noticed the ghost itself. The ghost is in the collective conscious. It doesn't make things fall off of shelves. And in the same way, the spirit is not in the sigil, but the sigil, you're noticing it, is noticing something synchronistically that does correlate. Remember, correlation does not equal causation. If you're a good mystic, you don't deny those words. You actually embrace them and realize that that's telling you something higher. When someone says, well, astrology doesn't mean anything because we know that the position of planets doesn't cause anything. And for that matter, not everybody's lives are the same with the same astrological chart. Otherwise, they should be if this was accurate and blah, blah, blah. No, you fool. It's like I said in that short video I did the other day. Correlation does not equal causation. However, just like a sign on the side of the road that says, slippery when wet or something, people don't go flying off the road because of the sign. They go flying off the road because they ignored the sign. So the sign doesn't make you fly off the road, just like your astrological sign doesn't make you become a certain way, just like the sigil changing colors doesn't make something happen. But ignoring the sign or paying attention to the sign can be useful. It's not a one-for-one thing. It's a correlation, not a causation. That doesn't mean it's useless. Just like when birds suddenly go quiet, that doesn't mean it's gonna rain. It doesn't mean that there's a predator in the woods. It could just mean that they hear you, or maybe they just got bored. However, if suddenly all the things in nature go quiet, it's probably a good idea to look around and see if you see a bear or a hunter or something. Same thing here. Okay. I'm getting like dry throat a lot lately. Whew. I think I need I don't know what I need. A lozenge?
Yeah, you need a lozenge or something, or like I'm honestly kind of surprised you don't have a glass of water nearby or something.
I usually do. I usually have a bottle of soda or something. But I'd have to like unhook my electronics and show my fat ass getting up.
Well, hey, if you want to go get something real quick, then feel free, and I will attempt entertain in the meantime.
I'll be. You know what it is? It could be this incense too.
Oh yeah, that actually could be.
My wife is gonna get me something. She's so sweet.
Camilla's the fucking sweetest.
Camilla is my sidekick, my Yoko Geri.
I feel like I've talked about this on stream before, but one thing for anybody getting into the community, especially, making YouTube videos or live streaming or anything like that, a skill that you will just pick up is being able to, in your head, in whatever moment you are in, being able to seamlessly transfer between somebody's, day-to-day name and their occult name.
Right? I love that.
Like
Like our user handles have become our occult names and vice versa in so many cases.
yeah, like I don't even, before it was like, okay, I must think of, your name, you are now DH. Now it's just, or, Camilla, that was a huge fight at the beginning because
Especially for me, because I got that boomer brain where I don't change names very quickly. I don't remember names quickly enough, let alone change them. That's the problem. If I remembered names quicker, it'd be easier, I suppose. I have to meet somebody like 15 times. I think I didn't even know my wife's real name like the first time we hung out. I had to like rehearse it like a bunch, like chick with the beautiful eyes, chick with the beautiful. Oh yeah. See, I just got laid. That's what that was. I just
oh
made
my
sure.
God, you just scored yourself so many points. That was smooth.
Smooth. Well, how do you think a fat ugly fool like me landed a hot chick like my wife? Come on, people wonder. How the hell did you get her? Well, gee, I guess it's because I have that quality. It's not all about looks, I guess, Certainly ain't the D. So hey,
Oh, ow, self-burn.
Then they're more shocked. Then they're more shocked when it is about the D later on. But anyway.
Damn, you learned my trick.
Cheese wheel comments.
The fucking cheese wheel, my dude. So we've got a collection of questions here, and I don't necessarily want to start from the oldest one just because it's so like more relevant to things we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of a couple of them, and you just scream out at whichever one that you think you want to talk about right now. All right. You ready? Your ear holes ready for this stream? So we have the Enochian Bible, Summoning of Beasts, Nietzsche's Eternal Reoccurrence, On Manifestation and Multiple Realities, The Five Grand Illusions of Collective Consciousness, Near-Death, Spirit Guides, and Soul Groups, and First Magical Experiences.
Part of me wants to talk about my virgin magic experiences because those are always fun. Some of those I don't have much knowledge of, like Nietzsche. I kind of, it's like they exist. You've heard some things that they've said, but you never got into them because they just weren't for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was like Soundgarden for me. So like what I've heard, I've just never taken the plunge for a full album, baby.
Yeah, like I'm not saying there's nothing to quote. It's just, I'm not a Nietzsche fan in general. I'm not against him either, but not a hard fan. Just like Jung, I actually talk more about Jung than I know about Jung.
I feel like that's most people, and to be fair, to get physical copies of his work is like prohibitively expensive if you want to go, the right route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's, you can get enough. So I like I said, I don't want to speak like I know a lot about Jung, but I know enough about Jung to know that a lot of what he says is incorporated into, especially like modern new age magical thinking, a lot of it, especially things like chaos magic and such. And my own, I integrate a lot of the fundamentals of Jung into what I do because I think Jung was more of a cerebral Alex Jones, that is not Alex Jones, Alan Watts, in the sense that Alex Jones, rather Freudian asshole did that come out of my mouth?
I don't want to imagine that dark reality.
Like, what the hell? Like that. That's a multiverse somewhere where that exists, dude. The collective consciousness is real and they're gonna kill you.
They're putting fucking pheromones in your mind that's making you gay.
It's making you have multiple collective consciousness. All right. Not that Alex Jones is 100% wrong about that, but anyway. Okay. So Carl Jung's, contributions, I think the concept of the collective conscious by itself, without all of the extra work that went into it, that proved more or less the concept, which is all very important to look up, by the way, the way that they sort of studied it. But sort of, so back when Jung was big, the concept of spirituality being a part of psychiatry was not as unusual as it maybe is today. Although I will say that the field of psychiatry is way more open to spirituality and metaphysics than any other branch of, we'll say, rational natural science of the modern era. You're far more likely to run into a classically trained psychiatrist or psychologist that recognizes spiritual ideas as being valid ones. I know a guy, Magicology, for example, who used to be on the show once or twice. Link Gillette, I think, is what he goes by on Facebook. I'm not sure if that's his pen name or not. But Magicology, he doesn't do much anymore, but he is, he's in school to be a psychologist, and that's one of the reasons he got into magical studies. It sort of all rolls in together in his mind. So Jung's an interesting character to talk about, especially because it validates this understanding of synchronicity, this idea that coincidences are miracles. And some of those coincidences are meaningful miracles. And some of those meaningful miracles transcend the very idea of what should be possible even. So this is why in my own works, I do not talk about magic and manifestation as if you're bending reality, but I call them synchronicities. In Become the Maelstrom, I'm very clear that when magic manifests, it takes the form of a synchronicity, not the form of stuff just appearing in your hands or teleporting or lightning bolts and shit. It's always in the form of synchronicity. The reason I say that, instead of just saying it manifests, because that would also be similar, is that synchronicity has a much more specific kind of meaning. Synchronicity is a message, according to Jung, between the identified self and the collective conscious, or the finite self and the non-dual whole. It is an agreement. It would be like me and Fleshpriest like finishing each other's sentence, meaning we're of the same mind. In that moment. Meaning, yes, meaning we're of the same mind, like we just said at the same time. Meaning we're in alignment with each other. Meaning, if I am having synchronicities, that means that my egoistic identity, is aligned with that which will inevitably be. Not because of fate, but because my ego, well, it is because of fate, but fate is a misunderstood term too. Because my ego is aligned with my higher will. If my ego and my will are one, I don't feel any sense of choice or hesitation or confusion. I am just flowing with the Tao in a sense of Wu Wei, and then weird shit seems to happen, and I get synchronicities all the time because I'm on the right track. And it's basically saying, so good. The best synchronicities are not just, I was thinking about, Jurassic Park and suddenly it was on TV 5 seconds later. The good synchronicity is, I was thinking about Jurassic Park because I was thinking about a spirit, wondering if maybe they had something to do with dinosaurs or something. And then Jurassic Park pops on. It's like, whoa.
I like what RPS points out. They say magic is so sneaky. The logical mind will always be able to explain it in hindsight.
Sure. Yep. That's definitely true too. And so it begs the question, once again, and it proves the point of why you can't prove it to a skilled skeptic, because a skilled skeptic can always, because they're looking for something that's impossible, whereas a good mystic doesn't recognize magic as something impossible happening. Nor does it even require spooky, superstitious, supernatural pseudoscience. That's the other end of that spectrum. The people in the middle who insist that magic is this weird acausal force that causes shit to happen, they are neither the skeptic nor the enlightened. They are, I don't want to say more deluded than the others, but I'm going to say that their specific brand of La La Land, unfortunately, is, well, obviously I don't think highly of it.
It's very incompatible with your existence.
I would say that the rational skeptic that says it doesn't happen is more compatible with my existence than the superstitious La La Land person. which sounds really weird coming from a guy with all this going on.
A little bit, but I think I see where you're coming from with it.
So, what can I say? This is why I sort of sound like a fence sitter to both parties. To the rational skeptic, I sound like I want to believe in magic, but I'm creating like rationalizations for it. And to the superstitious woo-woo person, I sound like a skeptic that's denying what they know to be true. But neither of those are actually right. I agree with both of you, just not the way you think. Like I said before about reincarnation, transcendence doesn't mean one or the other or proving anything. It's actually, transcendence means to step out of a paradigm and see the whole paradigm for what it is. And now you're in a different paradigm. So it sounds arrogant and egotistical only because you think you're inferior, perhaps, when I say this. I don't think you're inferior at all if I say this. But I'm on a different paradigm of understanding. I can see in color and you can see in black and white. We both see reality and we're both right, but there's a nuance to something there that other people maybe miss. And I'm not alone. A lot of you guys see it too. That's why I think a lot of you guys have fun with my streams. So you go, finally, someone else saying what I think. Cool. Cool. But I'll say that I'm in good company. Whenever I look at the gurus and such that are legitimate, not the ones that are just there to make money off you. Like just there for that. I wanted to talk, look at my super chats. But the ones that are literally just there making shit up to get money off you, the legit gurus mostly fall into a similar camp. There's a reason why these Hindu mystics that do all this tantric stuff and seem to have all these incredible potential powers and shit will tell you to ignore the cities, that they're false, that they're not the goal, that they're actually ego traps, that if you are able to even achieve them, then you should run away from them and never use them if you achieve them. It's like they get it. They know that the idea that your magical rituals can change the world, that's an ego trap. It's an ego trap just like the highly moralistic right-hand path is an ego trap. The problem is people upon hearing that will suddenly think that miracles don't happen. Like I'm trying to say that miracles don't happen. It's all science. It's only what physics says is possible and so on. That is also couldn't be further from the truth. There's an intersection and a transcendence between the two extremes in which both are true. It's just that you've got to go outside that box of it can only be one or the other in a binary. And it's not a mixture of the two. That's the other mistake. People will go, oh, well, Thorne's talking about pseudoscience then. He's talking about quantum physics, obviously. And that must mean that quantum entanglement and the uncertainty principle and consciousness controls it. No. Transcendence does not mean a blending of the two any more than it means neither of the two or only one. Transcendence means you step out of both paradigms completely. It's seeing the forest and the trees all at once and knowing what they are fully. That doesn't mean you can explain to a chipmunk what a forest or a tree is. Does that mean the chipmunk doesn't know the forest and the tree better than you? No. He might know that tree and that forest better than you ever will, even though you've transcended the forest. So you see what I'm saying? It's a bit of a mind fuck where people think that by me saying this, that means I know something better than them. I'm often the first one to say like, no, that motherfucker knows way more about magic than I'll ever know. Possibly because I'm not into it like that. That's not what I'm into. I'm not into the rituals and the bending reality shit. Not into that. It seems like it, but that's more of a focal point than I want it to be. In fact, the biggest disappointments I've had in magic are when I made it all about the results magic. It was only when I let go of the results magic that suddenly, poof, synchronicities are happening and the magic seems to manifest, of course. When I sit there going like, how come my spells aren't working lately? fuck it, this can't be real. And I go and I cry in my beer and I play video games for a couple days.
Manifestations can be like cats in that way.
Yes. I think that's why cats are so big with magicians. I think that's why. It's a big piece of it anyway.
It's fucking cruel, but yeah, it's the reality most of us experience, I think.
Yeah, what Necronicki says it well. The white light is a trap, guys. The truth, it's not black nor white. It's not even gray. That's why people say, I'm a gray magician. I go, sounds like you're one or the other then, in a way. You know, I know what they're saying, but people don't like it when I point that out to people because I think it's a real point of ego for people to think that they are neither left nor right hand, nor light nor dark, nor this. And they'll say, I'm gray or I'm middle and it's like, then.
To make a really nerdy deep cut, it's like how a lot of people will say, I'm a gray Jedi, and to completely not understand what a gray Jedi, like you're not gray Jediing, if that's a verb. If you say you're a gray Jedi.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I will often err on the side of saying I'm left-hand path, I'm sort of going back around again, where now I'm willing to say that again. I've sort of said I'm no hand, but I also said I'm left hand. Left hand in the Western mind has a very specific meaning. It usually means a lot to do with morality. It usually has to do with black magic, and most of it's superficial shit. You know, oh, I'm a black magician, so therefore I'm left-handed. So, to me, the difference between left and right hand has always been one of submission versus liberation. That's really all it's ever been to me, and everything else is just an extrapolating echo off of those two differences. You know, that doesn't mean that you can't fluctuate between the two, but you can only really be one or the other at any given moment. It's kind of like a wave or a trough. If you're a still pond, you're dead.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing. Like when I first started getting into all of this and just, okay, well, let's look up, you know, what does such and such website have to say about all of this? Let's get some definitions in order. And that was one of the first things, left versus right-hand path. It is amazing how many websites are out there of just, oh, well, right-hand path means you work with the gods and healing and good, and left-hand path is the dirty, evil. We do not go to that side of town. Now let me clutch my pearls.
Meanwhile, when you go hang out with those left-hand path people, they're the first ones who will really try to heal you, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah, I am tangentially connected to some right-hand path communities where just drama exists in all communities, but the type of say one thing and then do the other that exists with these groups I'm tangentially connected to, at least, it's just, and you people say your right-hand path and then you just fucking dude, I'll go hang out with the demon worshippers. At least they're pretty fucking cool.
I mean, you know, there is something to be said.
Shit.
There is something to be said, you know, our PS or whatever his name is says that humans like to put shit in boxes, and left-hand and right-hand path is a pair of boxes. However, while that is true, you are also having a human experience, so you can't help but experience the box. So if you're going to experience the box, there is no better box. It is whichever box you are. If you're right-hand path, then be sincere about it. If you're left-hand path, then be sincere about it. The truth is, you are both boxes. You are the oppressor and the oppressed. You're both. You're the liberator and the liberated. You're both. You're the liberator and the oppressor. You're both. So the understanding that I try to project onto people is that what right-hand path really means to me, if I was going to use Gnostic terminology, would be right-hand path is the path of the demiurge, and left-hand path is the side of the Lightbringer. Whether that be an incarnation of the fallen angel Lucifer or Jesus or Enki or Loki or whoever the fuck, it is always that element within any pantheon which bucks the system and says, fuck your authority, I want to do what I want. Now, if you listen to a right-hand path person, so the worst person to ask about both paths is someone that's on one of them, because they'll always say the other one's something else. Coming to me and saying, Thorne, what's the right-hand path? Well, I'm going to tell you what a left-hand path person's perspective of the right-hand path is. And if we're being really, 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 really honest with ourselves, there's sort of a right-hand path to the left-hand path too. There's a no true Scotsman fallacy of the left-hand path too. There is a thing that is impossible, an impossible ideal that no one can live up to. No one can live up to the ideal of either one, which makes everyone a fucking hypocrite at the end of the day. Nobody can be 100% liberated all the time. It's just, you couldn't have a human experience if that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
No one can be fully submissive all the time, because the very act of submitting requires an act of rebellion against something somewhere. Your own nature must be rebelled against, because it is human nature to want to be free. So to submit and go, I worship you as the greatest God, teach me everything, I am nothing but a worm. You actually have to subvert your own intuitive nature that says, don't fall on your knees and prostrate yourself like a coward weakling. Don't do that.
You have to be so dominating of yourself in order to allow that existence.
True. So,
and in another way, you have to be so submissive to your urges to be able to dominate.
Yeah. So, but from a practical, down to earth, pragmatic, we're talking about it perspective. Right-hand path means submission to dualistic, externalized powers. Left-hand path means recognizing that you are or becoming all of those things. I prefer the you are, because I think becoming implies that you're not, and that means that there's things bigger and better than you. The problem is most people on the left-hand path confuse that for the ego. They confuse the ego for the Most High, meaning their personal identity. Thorne is not the Most High. Thorne is just the hangnail on the end of the Most High's ass. That's all that is. That doesn't mean it's less divine. It just means that Thorne doesn't know everything. He can't. If he did, he wouldn't be here. Couldn't even call him Thorne then. The word Thorne would mean nothing. So this is where we get into all these platitudes of souls and egos and right hand, left hand, and all this other shit. Because it's impossible to communicate. But since I have been getting more into Luciferian Gnosticism as of late, as a perspective, and incorporating more of that into my current work and stuff like that, not because from a dogmatic perspective I believe in Gnosticism, but Gnosticism is a really good operating system or overlay for the Western mind to approach non-dual thinking. Like they go really well together, like chocolate and peanut butter. And to recognize that right-hand path is always in service to the so-called demiurge. I say so-called because the demiurge is a personification of something that is impersonal. It is a tendency of the divine. The Lightbringer is an equal and opposite tendency of the divine to want to let you free, to become who it is again. Another way to look at it is you created the demiurge and the Lightbringer both equally to challenge and become an obstacle for you in both directions. You did both because without both, you don't get the fun. You need both. You need it in pride. So how can you be liberated without chains? How can you become liberated unless you are first in a cage?
Nobody would go to a theater production or see a movie of just, wow, everything's great.
Yeah.
Will you pass me the remote? Nothing's really happening today. We'll just, just imagine Guardians of the Galaxy if his mom was all right and just there was no disputes amongst everybody. They were all just like
nothing bad
eating
ever
cheese
happened.
balls.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, I've pointed out, like, imagine this is a hell on earth. Imagine that from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, no need goes unfulfilled to the point where you don't even know you need it before it happens. So you wake up, piss is already coming out. You don't even get the relief of it because you didn't even feel like you had to pee yet. It's just pee's happening, food's happening. You don't even taste it because you're always tasting the most pleasant taste. So there's nothing to compare to. It's that gold thing again. That's why I said earlier, the idea of the infinitely sized pure golden cube. All of these absolutes are immediately, they're meaningless. So in order for you to suddenly have an experience, something about that gold or something about that experience has to contain the illusion of duality. Not because duality is the reality, but because without the illusion of duality, it's just oblivion. So when Oblivion, to use an Elder Scrolls concept, when Oblivion woke up and realized that it was Oblivion and said, this is boring, I'm going to create a creator and a liberator and a destroyer, and all these different opposites are all going to appear, and I'm going to pretend to be one or the other at any given time. And all of these things split down the middle through ignorance and become separate things, but they're not really separate. They're really just, I am here and everything else is over there. Once that happens, you get a demiurge that wants to create, control, and destroy everything, and you've got a liberator that wants to reveal everything, and in so doing, destroys everything too. You know, that's the one thing that they have in common. They both destroy. The one destroys in an assertive way. I can destroy your puny human body if you don't do what I tell you. The other one says, I will destroy your puny human body because it's not real. Guess what? Get destroyed and you'll find out. They're both teaching you the same lesson. It's just one's a hard master, one's a hard master and one's not. This is why I often say the left hand and the right hand both eventually lead to the same gnosis. Even if you become a total slave to this demiurge, eventually, just like I said earlier, doing these practices like a carrot on a stick, by enslaving yourself to the demiurge, you will eventually rebel. Eventually. Sooner or later, you will rebel, and in that rebellion, you will be free, and in that freedom, you will wake up. It's inevitable. Or maybe you get what you want and you get subsumed into that demiurge and you become all powerful and you realize, shit, I was that the whole time? Fuck. Eventually, the two become one. Eventually. Eddie says we're getting real close to Cenobites here. Yes, the Cenobites are actually, that's why I love, that's why I love the concept of them, because they really do point out something that is very deep.
It's funny too, because I feel this is where two paths diverged in a wood and they met again, because I don't think you were following the conversation in chat involving BDSM and D/S relationships and such. So I feel like Eddie was, right on that fence like you were talking about earlier, and just carved right down the middle and found Cenobites to relate the two.
Yeah, well, this is why, so going back to that love and light bullshit, the right-hand path bullshit, the left-hand path bullshit, this is why maybe I appeal to weird people, because people that are superficially right-hand path love and lighters, because they are superficial in general, and people who are superficially left-hand path, which is also true in general, they both look at me and say, he's talking our language, but he's talking the other enemy's language too. And so they see something that is not true. They see a demonolator asshole from the right hand, or an egoistic, arrogant asshole, or they'll see.
Have you ever played this game with a, love and light RHP person where you describe in explicit detail what your practices and beliefs are, and they can totally agree with you until you mention the, shall I say, aesthetics or schools to which you practice, and it's pearl clutching.
Yeah. That pearl clutching it says more about them than me.
Yes, very much so.
You know, the most right-hand path beings that I know of, they were always compassionate to the devil, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even when Jesus was rebuking demons, there was compassion in his tone. When the Buddha dealt with starts with an M, the demons of that culture, the rebuking wasn't "get behind me, you piece of shit, and I hate you and die." It was pitiable. It was, "Oh, I know you. You are a part of me too. Yeah, I get that. Why don't you go into some pigs? Because I can't destroy you. It's not time yet." What does destroying mean? What does it mean to destroy a demon? It means to integrate it. It doesn't mean to actually destroy it. The apocalypse is not when suddenly all the demons go into the pit of hell, never to be seen or heard from again. That's the demiurge version of the story. The reality is it's the true redemption. That pit opens and everything's disgorged and everything reunites, like in the Dark Crystal when the Skeksis and the Mystics come together and they form what they really are.
Ooh, I love that reference.
That's a hardcore nerd reference. If you don't get that one, get off my line, man.
I also want to shout out before it goes too long. We were joking in chat, RPS and I. Rawl is so moment to moment with all his comments, like, and it's not in like. I
thought he said nosepiration. Go ahead.
No, no, I'm getting there. It's really beautiful. It's like I don't even understand what gnosis you're working on, but I know it's there, and it's kind of beautiful just to observe. I think you're going to have to owe him like a commission for this t-shirt or something, or maybe a bumper sticker or something. It says, know this, know this. I fucking love that.
I like know nothing, and you put a space between know and thing.
That's actually also good, yeah.
But gnosis is a good word, which I'm going to be maybe doing a specific video on at some point. I'll have to see. But again, I've been dabbling in the Gnostic Luciferian Gnosticism, not in the religious sense, but in the metaphysical philosophy sense. And it fits really well with the non-dual whole. It's like a Western way of doing non-duality with terms that Westerners will understand better. So if you're living in a Western culture that's predominantly Judeo-Christian, which it is, it's a lot easier for me to be like, hey, you know, your God and the light bringer and blah, 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 blah. And then also insert non-dual things in there than to just be this completely alien non-dual conversation. Because I think it helps a little bit.
You got to give them bedrock to feel like, oh, I can understand this, and I'm just reaching out into some weird territory. You can't just hit them with the full, like, fucking Morrowind experience of, I don't understand anything that's going on here.
Yeah, I get that.
You can't leave them trying to find a sense of normal. You have to start them in a sense of normal and then reach out and incorporate the new.
Which is why I think Become the Maelstrom, which was a really good, like, first stab at this idea. And hopefully if I ever do finish this motherfucker, this new book, which I think was going to be titled Awakening the Avatar of Chaos.
Right back.
No, I'm speaking. Which was going to be, you can go. Which was going to be called Awakening the Avatar of Chaos, is now going to be titled Heretic. And the subtext will probably be Awakening the Avatar of Chaos. Because what are you doing, dude? What the, oh, he's opening his third eye and destroying the world. Look at that, like Shiva. Become the Maelstrom was sort of like my virgin stab at writing anyway, you know, and there's so much stuff I can do better now. It's not to say that Become the Maelstrom will be outdated or useless by any stretch. It just means that this would be updated, and I'll probably be leaving a lot out and adding a whole bunch of new stuff. The real question is, how cerebral do I want to get with some of the science? And that is a double-edged sword. The more scientific I get, the more people who are closed-minded science types will pick it apart because they'll miss the point of the allegories that I'm painting. But if I don't use some of those scientific allegories, people kind of can get lost in superstitious thinking instead, and that's also not good. So we'll see where this goes. There's even times where I just say, fuck it, maybe I should just stop writing books about magic and write fiction that illustrates that magic instead. And I've thought about doing that a few times. I've got 2 different, fantasies, we'll say, that I would love to turn into books at some point that would illustrate the concepts as I understand them in story form, which there's something to be said for that. So maybe I'll just do all 3. It's just, I think what I really need to do, there's a lot going on in my personal life right now. My son is leaving for the Navy very soon. And, that means that our house is sort of there's like an undercurrent of emotional, we'll say, confusion's a hard word, but emotional tension. Not in a bad way, just like, we all sort of feel like big change is about to happen and nobody knows exactly how they're going to respond to the whole thing. We've always been very close to our son and all that. So when he goes away, it's going to be weird. But on the other hand, I'm going to have a room that I can use for a temple. And how do I feel about that? Like changing his room into a temple, because he's never going to come back and stay in it. Once you go in the military, that's it. Unless you get dishonorably or something like that, washed out. So like his life is completely changing in a couple of weeks. And so between that and everything going on in the world, it's really hard to focus on these higher things in a way that turns into a good book. I have so many really awesome chapters written. Some of them are complete rewrites of each other. I have probably like 200,000 words written, but I can only use like 30,000 of them so far.
It's hard to focus on everything else when the root is feeling a little bit, ignore me. Okay.
No, but you're sort of right. It's really hard to focus on what I'm doing when I'm kind of scattered all over with these different important things. But the book, it's sort of like if I were to die tomorrow and my wife somehow released all this, either published it or just gave it to the world, it would be like people would be picking through this and loving and hating it and trying to make sense out of it, and who knows what kind of insanity would result from, especially if I was like a real bit, like if I was like a modern Aleister Crowley where everyone knew who I was and it was like this big deal, people would be picking through this shit for years trying to like, and they'd probably say this is the most scatterbrained, like directionless drivel ever, but every single sentence is dripping with like shit. Like, I mean, good shit, in my opinion. Like, if I read this book, like you said, like you have to, when you read my books, a lot of times, you can get through a paragraph or 2, but then every once in a while, you got to like take each sentence and just take a break. Like,
yeah,
what?
No, that's what I attribute, the vast majority of my difficulty reading your book is I'm just bad at actually finding the time to make myself sit down and read. The second biggest issue with your book in particular, as opposed to other books, is that I feel like just with one page, and I'm not just kissing your ass because you're my friend, is with each page, it's like, okay, well, I could just plow on, but I feel like I actually need to sit there and chew on this page a little bit. So progress is very slow because those pages are incredibly fucking dense. Bastard.
I don't know if I actually take that as, well, hold on. I don't know if I know you probably mean that in a complimentary way, or at least a nice way. But to me personally, I feel like, so one of my subconscious anxieties that causes me to flip-flop and have trouble making decisions and thus write is finding the voice that I want to use on my audience. The one hand, I want to write a book that is accessible to everybody so I can make the millions that I want. On the other hand, I want to make a book that is mind-blowing, that says everything in a profound way, in a way that I would enjoy reading it. Where I would spend, like you said, a little bit of time, like Like when I listen to Alan Watts, it's like I'll listen to that and it's like every other sentence, if not every sentence, is a chill running down my spine going, oh yeah. And I've heard that before. It's like it's not new, but it's still, oh yeah. And it's like an acid trip the whole time for me because I'm just constantly in this state of just like, yeah, I know that. Oh, I didn't think. And I find new things in it all the time. Stuff that again, it's not new to me. Like I never thought it before, but it's like, wow, he's really saying it. Like, whoa. And so I spend time digesting it, and I want to write that book too. And it's like, which one do I want to write more? The really cerebral one that people are gonna like have to digest a page at a time, or do I want to make a manual that will help everybody do what it is that I'm talking about?
And I think you achieved the middle ground because it's funny knowing you like I do. I know that's what you were doing without ever having you confirm that's what you were doing up until this point. But, you know, I could read it. And I think you did a good job of that. And it's one of those things you've been attributing that quote to me, and I'm going to use it right now of, I think that statement speaks more to me than anything of wanting to sit there and chew on some of the stuff a little bit. It's very easy to read if I just want to plow through it, but maybe it's because I'm your friend and I need to feel like I digest a little bit more, or maybe it's just what you're saying is speaking to me enough where I need to actually just, okay.
Well, you're not saying that it's obtuse. Like if it,
no,
like,
no,
so,
not at all.
So yeah, so like when I first read Paradise Lost and I didn't realize how I was supposed to string the sentences together, and I was trying to read it like a poem, and I was like, this makes no fucking sense. It's like it stops halfway through a sentence. How are you supposed to read this shit? And then when I wrapped it just right in my head, I'm like, oh, there's the full sentence, and it started to make sense.
I'm saying it's like a really, really nice bread pudding, where it's like, ooh, this is easy to get through, but it's also thick, and I gotta chew on it a little bit. And get through those, you know, those whiskey-soaked raisins to really enjoy all of it, to appreciate all the nuance.
You know, the fucked up thing, though, is...
God, I want bread pudding now.
Shut up, I can't have bread anymore. Well, I can have that fake bread. Which is actually pretty good when you kind of forget what bread tastes like. This tastes enough like it that it's kind of good. But anyway, the frustrating thing for me is that to say what I'm thinking, to say what I mean, is really simple. I could tell you my whole philosophy in only a handful of words, because everything else, sort of like a fractal that stems from a very simple equation that long, it's like that. You don't need... So the part that's long-winded and pedantic is explaining what follows the premise. Yeah. When you understand the premise of non-duality, all this other shit is just extrapolations. So I think that's where people get hung up, and why I was lucky, because I had a non-dual awakening without all the extrapolation first. I didn't sit there going, well, time's an illusion. How does that mean it's all non-dual? I didn't go the hard way. I had a moment of, you know, like almost like Highlander when he beats the Kurgan. I am everything. And if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you. But I had like a quickening moment, so to speak. That's maybe not a great analogy, but it's just, you know, it had that kind of an impact on me. And from there, as I tried to figure it out, like as I related to the experience that I knew was real, and I tried to understand it, then in so doing, I extrapolated out all these other ideas, and then I realized that this is what the mystics have been saying for a long time, and I realized, holy shit, I'm sort of reinventing the wheel all the time, because I'm starting from like, there's a wheel, and now I'm understanding how it rolls, you know? It's the same reason why now when looking at Gnostic Luciferianism, I go, holy shit, my higher guardian angel, shall we say, was turning me on to those ideas before I had any knowledge of what they were. And it's almost like I was kept from seeing this in its completeness, because if I had found that first, I probably would have fell in that trap and believed in that for 30 years instead of finding non-duality. I probably would have become a Gnostic and stayed a Luciferian Christian Gnostic and stayed that. and I never would have found the non-dual whole. Now I found the non-dual metaphysical ontology, in which if I plug all of this through that and in that and around that, oh my God, it all makes even more sense now. So it's not a religion. It's not a dogmatic belief. It's I'm everything. Well, that's pretty cool, but what do I do with it?
It's not a scripture so much as it is just a way of existing.
Mm-hmm. It's a way of existing. And so my books represent more an extrapolation of that flash of inspiration and intuition that then extrapolate into these working systems than the other way around. It's like I did a heroic dose of whatever, and when I came back down, I'm like, you know how magic could work? And then I try it, and I have these experiences that validate it. Instead of, well, Crowley said this, and this person said that, and 2 + 2, I'm not analytical about it. The analytical comes after the experience. I'm analyzing the experience.
It's validation.
Yes, right. And this is why one of the biggest prominent things I say early in this new book is that the difference between what I'm talking about and, say, a religion is that this is not a dogmatic faith-based belief system. You cannot believe in non-duality. You can only validate the experience of having it. If you're still believing in it without having experienced it, then you're lying to yourself. That's why you're not achieving what you're looking for. You already think you know what it is.
It's wanting something to be true and trying really, really hard to get yourself into that mindset and not actually understanding and living it. Mm-hmm. It's like when you... It's like when you meet somebody and like, oh, this person's so cool, and yeah,
I want to be just like them.
I want to, put my thing in their thing, or have them put their thing
touch peepees
in my yeah. They're really into this music. I'll get really into that too, and you just can never feel it, even though you really, really want to, but you just don't understand all the. Yeah.
I'm going to say it's like that, and it's even worse than that, in that the people who have it the best, the ones who are lucky, and this is going to sound arrogant a little, or maybe not arrogant, but egotistical a little bit, are the people who have a surprise awakening. They're the lucky ones, because they didn't have to go looking for it. And some people mistake that to think I mean that I'm somehow chosen or some shit. No, I don't mean that. I know I'm lucky. I know that I had the Zen version. I had the sudden awakening, which is, in my opinion, the best version. The reason I think that is because if I had spent my life seeking this, upon achieving it, I wouldn't know I had it, because I would be so busy trying to validate and trying to compare and having to get past my own biases first. So it's like the kid who is so filled with horny libido that all they do is watch porn all day and study sex books and all this shit, but they've never had sex. And when and if they ever do have sex, it will never match the expectation of the sex that they've had in their mind. And so they will probably stay addicted to that porno version instead, that cerebral version instead. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
What are you doing, stepbrother?
Right. Exactly. No, exactly. That's exactly like a good example.
Not a good example, but a prevalent one. If the search, if the fucking
no comment.
The fucking algorithm or whatever the fuck is to be believed.
Well, it's possible that algorithm is artificial and they're just pushing it on everybody because they want to normalize something, but that's a possibility too. Anyway, no, it's exactly. So people who are enlightenment tourists, these non-dual love enlighters, who they are in love with the trappings of it, and they go to these meditation classes to learn to be enlightened, to learn to be non-dual. My prediction is that it's going to take them a long fucking time. And the reason I say that is because when it finally happens, it's going to be a sudden, oh shit. it's not going to be a result of anything they're doing. It never is. No, I don't know anybody who has ever had that non-dual awakening who can say, I did this and that caused me to wake up. Nobody who's legitimate would tell you that. Nobody. I don't care who they are. Anybody who says I had an awakening because I did that, that's ego talking. That isn't enlightenment. That isn't the non-dual awakening.
CJ Anger says, wait, pondering your orb isn't enough?
Nope. Pondering your orb. Look, this is why they say, I know he's being fun. This is why so Alan Watts got into a little bit of he was a little bit of an outcast. He was a bit of a heretic, even in the Zen school of people, because at his time, Zen was sitting and meditating to the point of absurdity. And he was one of those people who was like, well, you're wasting your time if you think that that does anything. There's an old Zen saying, you know, I'm gonna butcher it badly here, but one of the patriarchs of Zen was at a temple, and he encountered another monk meditating, and he says, what are you doing? I'm meditating to become a Buddha or something like that. And so the patriarch picks up, I think it was like a piece of wood or something, and just starts rubbing it. And the monk who was meditating says, why are you doing that? He's like, well, I'm trying to polish it till it becomes a mirror. He says, you can't polish a hunk of wood until it becomes a mirror. And the patriarch says, by no amount of meditating can you become a Buddha. Because these things, now on the ghetto level, that's an insult. Oh, he just dissed that monk. Ha ha. No, the subtle subtext of that meaning was meditation doesn't cause Buddhahood. You're already the Buddha. Meditation doesn't cause you to become the Buddha. Meditation, if it does anything, it reveals your Buddhahood. But you can't do that on purpose or by assertion. It's only by negation that works. So it's like a whole bunch of what sound like inside jokes, and in a way they are, except you don't go anywhere to become inside. You realize the truth, then you get the jokes. You get what they're saying. The point is obvious if you get there already. The point, it's like, you know, there's certain jokes you can tell people that they'll laugh at, but they won't really get unless they've had an experience that relates to that experience, right? You know, sex jokes hit harder when you're an adult that has a dick that's been used.
You won't understand Jerry Seinfeld unless you've had the airline packets of peanuts.
Good point.
You'll just laugh along because you're contractually obligated to as a citizen of a first world country, but you won't understand.
Like the "What are you doing?" step, bro. Unless people are very well acquainted.
Unless you're a fucking deviant.
Unless you're a deviant like everyone else.
I'm looking at you, looking at me.
That's right. Don't you judge me.
That was to the audience, but that's very telling.
No, I was being you.
I understand now. Now I see you seeing me, seeing you seeing me.
Yes, and we're all reflecting each other in our own third penis. It's really cool. Our third nipple upon our third penis. It's quite amazing how these things go together. It's like some grotesque Lovecraftian monstrosity. I mean, that's why, not to go off on a huge tangent, that's why I love Lovecraft, because somewhere at the root of maybe not what he wrote, but somewhere all the extrapolations of it in the mythos turns into this weird mystical thing that actually corresponds to a lot of fucking shit found in religions and spiritual paths throughout history. It's pretty weird. So it's like, did he mean to do that? Or is it just the retelling of it crafted that afterwards? Who cares? It's cool. Let's play with it. So it's sort of like, you know, why is Superman basically Hercules and Jesus mixed together? Why is that? Why is that? Did they mean to do that or what? Like, anyway, so what time we got left? Are we running low on our operational time frame?
It looks like we got about half an hour left, half an hour and a little bit of change.
Okay. So let's go to one more of those questions and let's sell some crap in the interim.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say anything because I could tell that you were enthusiastic about the topic, but I think you kind of branched off on your own thing there. I don't think I don't think that started from any of these questions. More just like a collective idea of all of them rumbling within you.
Yeah,
So
it was kind of like a stream of consciousness that began off of a fart that made my asshole itch. Exactly.
yeah, I think that was actually like, I feel like it spoke to a couple people in the audience. I hope I'm accurate with that. And
I hope
like
so. I wasn't reading
it,
the chat. Were
yeah,
people responding to it, or were they saying "shut up, Thorne"?
yeah, no, I think so.
Okay,
Of
good.
course, they'll let me know if I'm wrong.
Well, some of them will be down with my swirl no matter which direction
Yeah.
it's going. But because I am just that hot. I know I'm that. Look.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yeah. No, I'm kidding. That's yeah.
So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, and I'm going to try to mix the order a little bit. So hit me with which one of these sounds like something that you want to hear more of.
I did like the first magical experiences question.
Okay, well,
If that's still on the table.
It is. So I'll run through them all again real fast, just so we know what all is on the table. We have Mikaba activation, alien collective consciousness, first magical experiences, near death, spirit guides, and soul groups, the 5 grand illusions of collective consciousness, on manifestations and multiple realities, Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, summoning of beasts, and Enochian Bible.
Enochian Bible would be interesting, but I'm not an expert on it. It does have a little bit of relevance to some of the stuff I've been looking at lately, especially from that Gnostic Luciferian perspective of, it adds more dimensions to the whole thing, but, it's part of the Apocrypha and all that. But I'll have to get back to y'all on that some more at some other point when I feel more inclined to study it. Part of my problem with all of this stuff, so this is a slight tangent, and don't let me go on it too long, is I still have a bit of a hang up about working with classical, we'll say, John D. angels, the Enochian angels, and all that stuff. And it's like, to me, from this somewhat Gnostic perspective, I look at angels like Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, all of them as potentially fine, but there's a feeling that they serve that demiurgical force, that authoritarian force. And I'm not saying that there isn't a version of them that isn't like that. I'm sure there is, because, the angels are just facets of something. They're just sort of, they are levers of collective conscious ability, we'll say, just in a bad, that's not the right way to say it, but that's the best I could say it on short order. But there's a part of me that sort of still feels a twinge of, we'll say, shadow, like a shadow twinge that says, don't work with demiurgical things right now. If that makes sense. So I also know that especially those 4 cardinal angels refer to, the Lamasu, the what is it, the fixed zodiac positions, the Taurus, the Leo, the Scorpio, all that stuff. And so there is that. And that's still relevant, but I got to take some time out from that before I make a full decision. So I sort of ignore a lot of the stuff that comes from the orthodoxy of Judeo-Christianity in terms of, I don't take it at face value. I try to look between the lies, so to speak, and read the Bible from a different perspective. When I read the Old Testament, I read it from the perspective of some group or some being or some religion trying to convince me that I'm not the God that is taking credit for the Bible. When in reality, not DH Thorne, but I am the son of that God too, like Jesus would be. And in the old meaning of the word son. So my problem is anything that's too close to orthodox, I kind of run from screaming. Which is a shadow I've got to integrate at some point.
Yeah, same here, honestly. I had a hard time at first accepting the Goetia just because of its tentative ties to Christendom.
There's even a part of me that is resisting the Goetia now because of how much the Orthodox Christians polluted it, giving it hierarchies, which are all demiurgical concepts. I know that there's ways to interpret it that aren't that, but there's a part of me that goes, why bother working with what the Christians identified as levers of power in that sense, when that's not what I'm after anyway? You know, it's sort of like, no offense to them, by the way, because I have encountered them in a liberating way. So that there are liberating variations. So for every, this is where I got to do like its own talk about it. For every spirit, there is a demiurge version and the Lightbringer version. There's a left-hand puppet and a right-hand puppet. One that says worship me and one that says I'll set you free. And the problem with both of those, though, is even the one that says I'll set you free, and this is where it gets deep as shit, unfortunately, nothing can set you free. Nothing. Anything that says I can set you free is saying it has power over you. So you've got to be careful even of that being. You got to listen to the one that says you're already free. Those are the ones you got to listen to. So you got to be careful and question which mask of the divine are you talking to? Are you talking the puppet of the right hand or the left hand? And man, that's where my current work is. I'm trying to pick that apart and find it, and I'll probably come out with that at some point.
CJ Anger, I love that comment. I'm not going to read it out loud because I don't want to get on that discussion.
But why not? I should do another political stream, but you know, we've been having some good times politically speaking. I think some things will actually cross the aisle of politics and say, hey, I think we can all appreciate that, but we won't talk about those things tonight because I saw Fleshy suddenly fade for a second, like he became a little bit less corporeal for a moment.
Before I forget, and I did forget this one for a long time, so I'm very sorry.
He's a bad boy.
A bad boy. So from Alexis23, who we answered the super chat on earlier, that was advice on shadow work. They actually hit us up with a second one a while after that. They said, thanks. I actually bought your books before I knew you had a channel, but I haven't read it yet, but have recently been thinking of doing shadow work. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, thank you. If you're still here, thank you. I wish you'd noticed. I appreciate that. We try to do our jobs, but sometimes we do them too well.
Yeah, that's on me. I'm supposed to keep track of that and jump in. I just tried tagging them. I think they're still here, so forgive me.
I won't. No, you don't need to be forgiven because I don't even pay you right now because we haven't reached the threshold where you get paid in a while.
It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
But see, no. I know, but just like it's not about the money when I do rituals for hire, but the money sure does make it more professional. So there is that.
Fair.
Anyway. So
the
speaking of money. So I want to show this. I don't think I showed this last week because I don't think I had it.
And I have a second super chat to get to after that.
Oh, word. All right, let me do this and then we'll do that.
Okay.
Very soon I have to hit up Elena because she is helping me produce these. But these are going to be coming out in force very soon on my Etsy store very soon. I have wanted medallions of the Trinity of Self for a very long time. So Elena has found a way. I've been hoping for this. They're stainless steel. We can't do them in other materials, which is fine. I was hoping to do them in some kind of a gold or a brass or something, but I think stainless steel is just fine. Who knows? Maybe I'll find a way to plate them or something. But these, and they'll be pretty reasonably priced actually, unlike a lot of stuff that you get where it's got to be like $100 for something like that because of the. No, this will be way more reasonable to the point where I'm not going to name prices just yet because I got to get the final thing, but it'll be in the ballpark of 40 or so instead of like hundreds. So cool shit. I'm really happy about that.
For small batch custom, that's extremely reasonable.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm going to charge. So figure all the overhead and everything that goes with that. So I'm really excited about it. I'm happy about it, and hopefully that there will be interest in those I'll probably order an initial starting test batch of like 10 or 15 of them. We'll see how those go. So hopefully those sell. But yeah, anyway, that will be coming out soon. In the meantime, for those of you who are new here, I appreciate you. I don't do this just for the sales. I would be doing this anyway, but any little bit you can do, sharing, liking, subscribing my videos, subscribing to me on Patreon, subscribing to my monthly, my bi-weekly meditation class, meditation and ritual class, really. All of that stuff goes a long way. Buying my books in particular, buying my tapestries that I have for sale on Teespring, all of that stuff goes a long way to helping me, because I only work part-time at a regular job, and I do that mainly just to make sure I got the ends meeting. I'm not aiming for riches. I'm not trying to sell you like a big-time publisher. I'm not saying I would never approach a big-time publisher and get paid really good, but I'm a self-published, self-employed content creator, YouTuber, spiritualist type of guy. Every little bit helps.
Every dollar that goes to DH Thorne goes into DH Thorne's wallet to pay for food, to pay for, the house over the head, to support everything that he's doing. It doesn't go to paying accountants or bean counters or anything else like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's shoestring as fuck, and I'm proud of that. I'm actually happy with that. Like, people have said, like, well, Thorne, why don't you do more like what, I don't know, some might say EA does and really commercialize more, or why do you do it at all? And it's like, you know what? Why not get paid for doing something that I love? And that keeps me more interested in it. There is one caveat, though, and I talked about that in a video I did not long ago. There is a point, if you're not careful, where you can get caught up and it becomes more about the money and chasing the clicks. And I fell into that for a little while, mainly because my heart wasn't in it for a little while because of some shit that was going on in the real world and the drama in the community. So it was kind of like, why am I bothering? So I took a month off, and that really helped. Taking that month off really helped. It really made me realize why I like doing this. And it sort of made me humble again, because I went from 1,000 views a video to, like, I think my last one got 300 altogether between, like that's pathetic, but you know what? I'm doing it anyway. So it's obviously not about that. It's about doing it for the sake of doing it. And a little bit of cheddar I get on the side pays the bills, make sure that someday I'll be able to buy a house. I don't know when, because everything's crazy, but pay a house, and the house will be very humble. We're talking like, a trailer home somewhere in the woods.
All of us right now are just sitting there with fucking sniper rifles, just lining up in the scope, waiting for that bubble to fucking burst.
So unfortunately, it's probably going to burst in a way where our money is worth less, so it won't be that great a burst. But maybe it will. Maybe we'll get lucky, and you can find hovels for $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 that, if you do your part, wouldn't be that bad. And with Starlink coming online, my excuses for not wanting to live in the deep country are going away, where the affordable homes are. So long as I can keep doing streams and watching Netflix and shit in my off time, fuck it. Why not live somewhere where you have to use a satellite dish, Fuck it. So we'll see what happens in the coming years. I could use a break from society, to be brutally honest with you. I realize, though, it's not even society that bothers me. It's the virtual society. So maybe I should go the other way. Maybe I should move into the city and just stop using the internet. Maybe that's what the right answer is.
Cult compound or trailer park? Why not both? Says Eddie.
Eddie and I, sometimes, you get me, bro. You get me. Sometimes I just feel like you complete me. You get me. You get me. Because there's a part of me, like I've told you my fantasy, right? Fleshy, the fantasy is like basically create either a village or buy a mansion, and whoever is invited lives there, but we have like a common area and a private area, so that like we all come together and have a bonfire every couple days, or we have like a communal living room where we come together and have meals, but we also have our own separate kitchens and shit, so we want to be separate.
Yeah, like I love it as long as we don't get into Children of the Trough territory. Like
I don't know that reference. I feel like I should.
I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
And anybody who knows, I'm sorry for reminding you. Anybody who doesn't know, don't Google it.
I mean, I kind of, it's like I want a communal living arrangement without living in a town that's already there that everybody has. And
yeah, you want to make it from scratch and make it your own thing.
And I also want distance from everybody, because as much as I love everybody, I hate everybody at the same time. Like, I get so sick of people, even the ones I love. It's just like, look, I put this curtain up sometimes just because just to feel alone.
I was having that conversation with CJ, actually. He messaged me. It's been a while since we talked, and I was like, hey, dude, I fucking appreciate you. I'm gonna have to. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I was busy all weekend. I'm gonna have to message you back in a couple days, because I just don't have the social battery right now to fucking talk to people. It's like, yeah, I get it. That's cool. Like, I appreciate you for getting that.
And I'm glad that slowly the collective conscious of people online is starting to come to grips with, just because I'm on Messenger doesn't mean I'm going to respond when you message me.
I fucking hate that. That's why even when I had Facebook, I was offline always.
There's actually people who will send me stuff. I will read it. I'll acknowledge it in my mind and say, I should get back to them, but I don't feel like getting involved in a conversation. I appreciate the message. I don't want them to stop. But if I don't respond, it's not because I'm sitting there going like, I don't want to hear from this person. It's more like it gives me something to think about, and I don't necessarily feel the urge to respond. Maybe I'll just give it a thumbs up, you know? And to me, that's enough. Like, I'm not saying I'd be happy with it. I'd want to be validated too. So I'm not saying I don't get it. But unfortunately, I'm not even that big. I can only imagine if I get bigger and have like 100,000 subscribers and followers and shit, how mind-numbing it would be to try to sift through it all. Like right now, I'm at the max of what I can handle, just from our Discord server and the private messages that I do get. And I ignore almost half of them. When I say ignore, it doesn't mean I don't read them. But I refrain from responding to more than half of them. Because it's just like, you know, no offense to those people who are having wild mystical awakenings, but I'll get people who want to tell me their mystical awakening in some sort of... Sometimes it's because they just want to be validated, and that's actually really cool. But other times it's because they want to somehow influence my thinking. And I always run away from that. I've got this one guy who I know, he's actually, yes.
We might have, I'm not going to say nothing, except we might have had somebody that fit into that category appear earlier in chat on this very stream.
Oh, did I miss it?
I think you did.
Oh,
it was very amusing to me. And people who were there will probably know what I'm referencing.
What, were they being rude? Did you block them? Did you make them go away?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. Just the way they spoke was very telling.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to assume it's cool. But
yeah.
So I mean, like, I've got this one guy. I don't want to give too much away, but I got this one guy, and he's a regular, we'll say, patron of my guidance. We'll put it that way. Very regular patron, one of my most loyal patrons of my guidance. And he's actually more advanced than he likes to let himself believe. He's just got some things he's working through. And he's doing a good job. But he's got this person that he knows that desperately wants to talk to me. And he's like, I mean, you know, if you really want to talk to him, I'll tell him whatever you say, like $200 an hour, whatever it takes to put, but I really recommend you don't. And then he told me some of the things he said, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like someone who is not actually having revelations that they want validated or to talk about. It's that they want to convince me and sort of convert me to what they're saying, you know? And it's like, don't come to me with your magical theories. Not because I don't respect them. It's because I don't respect someone who wants me to publish them or wants to change what I'm doing because of them. Make your videos, make your book, make your Facebook posts, make your own kingdom. And if I see value in it, I will either promote it, or I will acknowledge it, or I will support you somehow.
Yeah. Throw it into the crucible.
Bingo. Like, don't give it to me to play with. I don't want it. Because I don't know what part of me this is that's speaking, but it's an obstinate part. Maybe it's that Aries part that says, don't show me where to go. I know where to go.
Yeah. And, you know, if I could speak to that, for everybody, fucking, there was a thing that Extra Credit said about a completely different subject that I feel applicable to this too. Fail fucking faster. You know, if you're trying to approach others about validate this for me before I put it out there into the world, it's a very, I get it, and this isn't putting judgment out to anybody, but it's an insecurity in a way, and just have the self-confidence, put it out there, let it be its own thing. And you know what? Sometimes it's going to fucking hurt. And sometimes you're going to get a really bad take, and somebody's going to come along very quickly and maybe point out all the ways that you were wrong to your own perspective. And that's going to hurt and that's going to suck, but ultimately you're only going to get stronger for it. So don't try to be precious about all these thoughts and ideas, because at the end of the day, they really aren't precious things. It's what you do with them that is more important. So fucking throw them in the crucible, get it out there. Don't seek validation. Just validation will come to you when you make something.
I mean, I completely agree. You know how I did it? You want to know what the secret to my success was? If you call it even success. So here was the first part. I tried something maybe a decade ago. I tried to make an online YouTube thing that had to do with martial arts, specifically stuff to do with ninjas, and it was going to be tongue-in-cheek, it was going to be fun, it was going to be all about the bullshit and the reality of the history and stuff. It was really just going to be just a channel about those topics. And I really was a cornball about it. I put on a fake ninja outfit and all kinds of shit. And I pissed off like the legit ninja people, like really bad. And they were trying to dox me and everything. And I didn't even get more than like 50 people watching my shit ever.
Oh shit.
So I got BTFO'd by like these people who got really triggered. What?
I bet you had the fucking ninjutsu bros and the mall ninjas all hating on you.
I did. No, I really did. It wasn't that bad. It's like now I look at their channels and my community is so much bigger than theirs would ever be. Like I was running scared from people who didn't even have 1,000 subscribers at the time. And it's like, if push came to shove now, I'd be like, get them, my minions, and they would be crushed within a day with memes and shit. It would be over. But at the time, I got crushed. And the reason I got crushed was because I don't think I was being respectful to the stuff, and I was trying to do something that wasn't me at the time. You know, I was way too overweight. I wasn't practicing martial arts anymore. It was literally, like Eddie just said, the hillbilly ninja of the occult. It was literally Beverly Hills Ninja. Like, and people didn't like it. And I mean, some people did. They thought it was entertaining, and that's what the point was. But it really went over badly, and it really hurt my ego really bad. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There was one night I was crying about it. Like, I was so misunderstood and being attacked and people trying to dox me. I was crying about it. Like, I'm not even gonna front. I was crying about it.
That is the worst pain to me is, you know, if you take what I said and throw it back to me and show me all the ways in which I was wrong, that hurts. But that's a different type of hurt that I can process and everything. When somebody misconstrues or misunderstands what I said, and I feel like they're attacking a misrepresentation of me, that can go anywhere from getting me flamed up, of just truly pissed, of you didn't even listen to, just.
But you know what made it hurt? There was a wise man who once said, and I think EA quoted them, and some other people have said it, and I've said it: the insults that hurt the most are the ones that we think are based somewhere in some truth.
Oh, yeah.
If someone's just an asshole saying, you're a fucking this and a that, and it's completely off base, and you know, and it's so like, that usually rolls off. It's when they're talking about something that you secretly believe or hate about yourself. So, for example, I never attained through my formal training an official black belt at this one school that I was talking about. And I was never saying I had one. But in the eyes of many people, even though this style of martial arts didn't require a black belt to be considered quite knowledgeable about it, Sort of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You don't have to be able, in fact, there's not many black belts. There's blue belts, purple belts, you know, all these things, yes. And people who achieve even those, what would be a low belt in many other systems is considered very, very knowledgeable and good. Well, I wasn't a black belt. And so people were saying, well, you're not an expert. You don't have a right to talk. And it's like, dude, this is just a channel that's for fun, for one thing. I was also a teacher at one point with the belt I had. So I felt it was legitimate for me to talk about techniques and stuff. I thought it was fair. But at the end of the day, what they were criticizing me for wasn't wrong. And so that, when couched in intention to hurt me, really did hurt. And I wasn't ready yet. I couldn't do what I do now if I was that person today. Because somebody would say, Thorne, you're not really an occultist because you've never completed this initiation and you're just a fat idiot and you make up stuff as you go along. Well, now I'm like, yes, I do make up a lot of stuff as I go along. Thank you for noticing. That's why it works.
You haven't even read Crowley's 7 lectures on the intellectual pursuit of divine butt stuff? How could you... I don't even know who I'm speaking to right now. How could you call yourself an occultist?
Like,
right.
well, yeah.
Well, these are the same people that'll attack people like EA for like with similar stuff. No wrong with it. Nothing, you know, both. Some of it's legitimate, and I think EA would admit that.
Yeah, it's just a matter of different perspectives.
Sure. So, well, anyway, that was the first seed to my success. Was they say in business you've got to fail 10 times for every success, if not more. I was lucky. I only failed once before this. But I failed in such a spectacularly painful way that I had to rebuild somewhere in my mind. And when I decided to do this, the original plan was to hold no punches, to talk shit about everything, to speak my mind sincerely, not care what people said about me, and never claim to be an expert in anything except my own perspective. To never claim to have mastered anything. To just be like, hey, I'm just some opinionated asshole with a blog, and it's a very edgy, goth, black magic blog. Fuck you all. Love it or leave it, and you'll never know who I am. So I started doing that, and I started posting my blog to places, and the first couple entries had like 400 views and 5 comments, and people loved it. And were like, where is this guy coming from? I was like, oh, don't encourage me. What are you doing? You know, and next thing I knew, doors were opening all over the place. And the reason I think it was, so secret number 2 of the success was, after getting my ego crushed completely, was to do it in a way that didn't build up my personal ego. I built a facade. I created DH Thorne as my writing name. And I really, instead of putting myself into it, I used it as a way to put parts of myself forward that I didn't care if people attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to do this that way. And the third secret of my success is just, well, sincerity, which is born out of that shield that I build. So I made an egregoric shield that people can attack DH Thorne all day long. You can curse the living fuck out of DH Thorne. Chances are you won't cause anything worse than me than like I stubbed my toe. You know, it's because you're attacking a phantom that's not even really me. There are parts of me in it, but those are parts of me that I don't care that much about. You can ask Fleshy, the shit that stresses me out is having to deal with the drama, not what people say about me. Mm-hmm. I want to know because it's still, you know, you get that morbid curiosity. But it's like, that's not true. That's not who I am. They're talking about a phantom. That's not even who I am. You don't know me. So, you don't know me.
I hate that morbid curiosity, because every time somebody in the community is like, oh, did you hear about that piece of drama? It's always like, no, and I don't care. Mm-hmm. But tell me anyway.
That is one of the reasons I avoid half of the comments that I get too, is because I will get little birdies telling me such and so is trying to get you, such and so is claiming they cursed you, such and so called you out. There's some video talking shit about you. I will make a caveat. If they've got a channel that's like dwarfs mine in size, if Behemoth X suddenly starts talking shit or something, maybe then. If somebody's revealing hidden messages that I didn't even know I sent, you know what I'm saying? If somebody's saying some shit, that has some doxing element to it that I have to protect against, that's different. But if people are talking shit, dude, I've got like 5,000 or 6,000 people following me. The idea that even half of them like me is extraordinary to my mind. I expect half of them to hate me. So
it kind of comes with that fail faster idea I put forward too. It's just, it's good to know that you got a reaction out of somebody where even if you were wrong, you forwarded a line of thinking, you know, not being precious to that idea, or even, you know, I was the creator and this idea is very precious to me. Is you can fuck that idea. You can fuck that idea right off. Just let's, you know what I'm saying. Words.
Look, DH Thorne's like a D&D character to me. I'm not saying I won't be really sad if the DM kills it, but it's made to die. Just like I am. And that's probably why I'm better at this than most people, because too many people are, they're not playing a character, or they're playing a character that's too fake. Like, there's a balancing act you've got to do. You can't be insincere. You have to use it like the best clowns wear the makeup so they can be themselves, right? But if you make fun of the clown, it doesn't hurt them. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. I'm a little bit of a clown. I'm here to amuse you. And in that amusement, I'm being honest. So sometimes I'm very, you know, opinionated sounding. But a lot of this is an act, man. You know that.
I've got 2 comments to read real fast. The first one says, I cursed DH Thorne. Now that I've got your attention, would you like to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Wyatt, you fucking troll. And the second one is that second super chat that, again, sorry for the lateness, from Alpha Draconian. They said, Alan Watts, you are it, and heart 100. Heart. Eckhart Tolle, the now love them both. And great chat. Thanks, guys.
Eckhart Tolle is pretty fucking cool. There's a lot of good guys to listen to. The people that I listen to the most regularly would be Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, and Rupert Spira. I avoid Deepak Chopra like the plague. Not saying he didn't serve a purpose early on, but he's so, like, you know, Mick Non-Dual. Like, I just can't. I just can't with him anymore. Same thing with Tim Curry. I mean, not Tim Curry. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey. Same thing with Jim Carrey. It's just, it's so like, you know, no, thank you. I'm not saying they've never put anything in good. Joseph Campbell's good, but there's not much to listen to. So when it comes to people to listen to, it's really Alan Watts, you know, Terence McKenna, and Rupert Spira. There's some Eckhart Tolle out there you can get that's very good. Sadhguru is good from time to time. He's more like just, you know, wise old grandpa though at this point. He doesn't really talk non-dual shit very much. But he does give out very important life guidance though, which is very useful. Of course, I happen to think he's a murderer, but that's besides the point. Yeah, so that's my big ones that I listen to. Especially when I need to just sort of let go of the bullshit. I listen to Alan Watts because he has a way of, like, he's so like the dude of Zen.
You know, I don't know if it's so much, not to say either is better than the other or not good, but I'm not even sure with Alan Watts if it's what he's saying or how he says it. It's like
it's absolutely both. I mean, it's definitely both, because if he didn't say it the way he said it, if he said it like, you know,
if he
with like a Brooklyn accent,
yeah, if he said everything that he was saying, but with Alex Jones' voice, it would not hit the same.
It wouldn't, no, because
you
he sounds like,
understand that you are all. You are all. You are not the ball. You are not the eye. You are not seeing the orb. You are not pondering. You are all.
Wait a minute, Fleshy. Hold on. You do realize you were just talking exactly the way I talk, don't you?
That's what people say, man. You are Alan Watts for people who listen to Alex Jones.
Oh shit, dude. That's a backhand if I ever felt one.
They might say it a little bit different, but it got fucked up in this translator over here.
Like I said, Alan Watts would be one of those few people that I would love to spend time, just like, you know, my ideal vacation would be an old fucking Volkswagen van with a wizard painted on the side, with fucking Alan Watts, Deepak Chopra, and Joseph Campbell, and maybe like maybe like one of the gurus from the 60s, just with like bags of fucking psychedelics and weed, and just go cross country until we smell like the bag of weed, like there's no difference. And when we, like, by the time we get from one end of the country to the other, we're not even the same people anymore. Like that would be just like forget it. I would give up a lot for that experience. Like that would be just so much fun. And I have a feeling that I wouldn't just be listening. I think I'd be like we'd all be talking the whole time and talking shit, and be, you know, Alan Watts would be like, you're all too fucking cerebral, and Terrence McKenna would be like, it's all in your mind, man. And it would just be fucking great, dude. It would be fucking great.
I just see you guys baked out of your fucking gourds, sitting outside of like one of those fucking only in the Midwest type roadside attractions of like, see the world's biggest teaspoon, just sitting there, just contemplating how all fits within the teaspoon, and yet we are the teaspoon. And like, anybody got any Fritos? Fuck, we should drive back to that gas station. Nobody can find the fucking keys or the car. It's like, like your entire experience would just surmise into a fucking dude, where's my car, but for an enlightened mind.
I think you just described the ultimate fucking like stoner Grateful Dead Cheech and Chong
Yes.
non-duality story. We should get together with like some real producers and write that story, and just no one will get it except the fucking freakazoids. Like it'll totally bomb at the box office, but like will become a cult classic like One Endless Summer or something.
Yeah, let's just somebody out there, somebody with a video camera, just you like I'll pay you. You just meet up. I'll rent a car. I'll get DH, Thorne, myself, and a couple members of the community. I'll feed him like a normal glass, like this full of some nice tincture, and the rest just filled up with club soda, and we'll just see what happens. We'll figure it out in the editing room, brother.
We've replaced DH Thorne's regular crystal sparkling soda with Fleshpriest's magical mixture. Let's watch. 5 hours into road trip and chill, Thorne is thinking he's some other god now.
Yeah, baby, we don't even need Alan Watts in the flesh there. We're just going to put on some chill step, and with where you're going to be, you're going to fully believe that Alan Watts is sitting in the seat next to you.
Except I have a bad habit. I have one bad habit, and that is if you get me one-on-one, I feel like it's my job to analyze you to death. Like anybody who comes to me for advice or guidance, like I will, and it's almost sometimes it is, I'm not gonna say abusive, but it is sometimes too much. Like I probe too hard, and it can get, that sounds really hot. It gets it can get uncomfortable. You know, some people appreciate that, some people hate it. And so that's the one reason why I think everyone should have a separate room on that bus, because you're going to want to get away from me at some point. Because I will get like really just way too fired up on what I'm doing, and I'll just be like, you know, the reason why you fucking wear your underwear the way you do is because, and I'll just overdo it, and it'll get like really frustrating.
I think that might speak to a sensitivity that exists. That may be a sensitivity, but that existence is in all of us. Like, if you could see the fucking reality of when I get like fucking neck deep into whatever the mania side of manic depressive grips into, It's just, you don't want to be around me. It's a little fucking scary.
Mm-hmm. And I feel that way because I do that to people. I don't even mean to. I usually mean it with the nicest of intentions, but it's like I comfortable like the back of a VW bug. Fuck you and your Mallrats reference. That's number 2 tonight.
I don't understand, but I'm happy for what you did, Camilla. Well done.
She lambasted me. Yeah, no, it is a little bit like that. It's like getting fucked in the ass psychically. But anyway, yeah, no. Anyway, I'm sort of doing it now. I'm getting a little bit caught up in my own bullshit, but I'm getting hoisted by my own petard, shall we say. But the good news is I think that would be a badass road trip. And and if we ended at the fucking commune, the fucking, the occult playground that Eddie's always trying to get us to start, I think it would be like the greatest. In fact, that settles it. If I ever do start a little fucking cult compound with Eddie or whatever, that is how it starts. Everyone's got to go. Everyone's got to go. Like anyone who's going to live there, we inaugurate the cult compound, the artist colony, whatever we're going to call it, with a psychedelic road trip that just every night we spend pretty much out by a bonfire, and every second or third night we stop for a shower somewhere. And we just fucking see every fucking weird attraction we can find on the way.
Ooh, I like that. But where I thought you were going with it, and I also like this idea, is everybody who joins, like, part of the requirements is you got to film yourself coming here. And like, ideally it's with, a fucking, the fleshy idea of a cocktail. and just let's see what gnosis we can scrape together on movie night.
Ah, man. What are you going to say?
I don't know, but I know what I am going to say soon is good night, because we are reaching that time.
So people are asking about killing Yahweh and all kinds of stuff, man.
I think that was a little bit of a response to it. Actually, a part of my laughing out loud earlier was just the timing of it, because we were talking about Christ, and then somebody with like a Jesus is love or Jesus is the only way came in. What was it? Was not saying anything derogatory or anything. Just said, "Hi guys," and so I think some of that was in response to that.
Okay, well, that's why. Like, I mean, maybe we'll end on this subject a little bit. Especially since I posted in some Facebook groups tonight that might have brought in some new people. So welcome if you're new. First, I want to respond to Scotty Hamilton, or Scotty, or whatever I like to say it, Scotty. They're referencing my martial arts comment and saying there's some regrets there. And I'm not going to say that there isn't. I'm going to say that I don't do regret, like in the traditional sense. I don't believe in regret. I will say that there could be longing there. So regret maybe is the wrong word, but there is a part of me that doesn't regret not doing it, but there is a part of me that would love to get back into it. The problem is there are no schools around me that encapsulate what I want to learn, let alone can afford. So in that Venn diagram, they're 2 separate pictures right now, and neither of those are true. So if that ever happens, I would probably, if I could afford it, I would join it in a heartbeat. I would like to go to a combatives class, a class that teaches weapons and grappling and, striking, using the 80-20 rule, where you focus on weapons 80% of the time, and 80% of those weapons are firearms. And of the unarmed martial art, 80% of that is grappling. And, I'd probably want to focus like that. Not grappling on the ground, but grappling as in, like, avoiding going to the ground until you want to. So, just to resharpen the skills that I've let go over the years. I'm not saying I can't defend myself, but like, I've got to cheat more now than I used to. It used to be I could sort of play with people. Now I've got to cheat, because it's like, maybe I should just stick to guns now, because I can't run and jump like I used to.
The pocket sand methodology.
Yeah, but pocket sand.
I think it's more accurate to say not, how do they put it? Not regret? Or with the martial arts thing, what was the wording that they used? Was it regret?
Well, they said regrets. They said he senses some regrets there. And
okay, so I'm going to say not so much regret, but more of just a curiosity for how things could have played different. You know,
Not
like,
even there. No, not with that so
Really?
much. I have no strings attached because I don't feel like I left it completely behind. What I feel like is, see, I don't believe in regret. You can ask my wife. I never sit there going, I wish I had, or I wish I hadn't. And if I do, it's really recent past tense. Like, I wish I never said that to you 5 minutes ago. Like, that's regret. Once I'm over it, it's not a regret. It's integrated. So it's not, I genuinely don't, and I'm not saying this like, oh, look, holy me, I don't do regret. I'm saying I've never done it. I've never had a problem with regret. What I do have is occasionally a feeling like I want to get back into that, or wouldn't that be cool if I do this? Or like you said, I wonder what would have happened if, but it's never a regret. It's never anything like that. So, but you're in the right direction. Like when you say regret, it's still in like, you know, you're wrong, but you're not wrong. It's like you're right in that
the
there's a
finger's
part of me
pointing closer.
Yeah, you're definitely close to the truth there. You're definitely like, you definitely sense the desire in there. Like I would like to get back into it. So not from a regret perspective though. All right. But anyway, getting into like the Yahweh Jesus stuff. So, last year I would have mocked the Christian side, and I still do, but what I mock is the orthodoxy. And the orthodoxy being this take on Jesus so that orthodox position of Jesus is that Jesus is the only Son of God, that Jesus is the only way, that Jesus is somehow God in a way that you can't be. This idea that you must worship Jesus, that you must pray to Jesus to be saved, that Jesus wasn't here to show you how to save yourself. It's all hidden even in the Orthodox Bible, it is all in there. If you watch, there's a video by Alan Watts where he really comes open about this. And it's one of his best videos on the subject ever. And I posted it in, I think it's Chamber of Spirits, I posted it on Discord. And he speaks from a position of authority because he was, I forget how far he went, but he was pretty much, I think he was ordained, I forget. He's not like, it's not like me who's a nobody talking about it. He would have known, he would have had the education to know what the Orthodox position was. And he was able to talk about what they got wrong. So it's really, really fun to listen to his take on it. And it resonates with my take on it. And it's one of those things, again, where it's like, as I'm figuring it out, Alan Watts pops up and gives me a way to think about it that leads me to some position that's all mine. And it's good shit. That's why I love Alan Watts, because he doesn't tell you, he gives you things to think about, and then you figure it out on your own. And I love that way about him. I wish I was more like that. That's a regret. No, I'm kidding. But I do wish I was more like that. But so Jesus is, from the Gnostic perspective, a light bringer. And Jesus actually opposes the demiurge. And the demiurge is the God of Abraham. The God of Judeo-Christian Islam origin. It is the Old Testament God that says, worship me or else. And Jesus was absolutely a rebellion against that in every possible way. Never once did Jesus say, worship God or else. Never once in that way. Never once. Worship was an option. Worship was a kindness. Worship was a generosity, but it wasn't a requirement. The requirement was, well, forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And that forgiveness was presented in a way which was so simple to achieve that really the message was, it was already there. It was you that had to forgive yourself. You're not getting forgiveness from an external divinity that's saying you're forgiven. It was literally saying, just say my name and he'll let you in. That is basically a cheat code. That is basically, that is literally the Buddhist mentality of you know this is all bullshit, right? Just relax. You're already the Buddha. You're already me. You just got to accept it. It was just in a language that, in a metaphor that has been lost and perverted by an orthodoxy that wants you to worship them and not the truth. So my problem has never been, this is why I'm very apologetic in a sense about Christianity, despite all of this. Because I don't hate the player, I hate the game, right? I don't blame the average Christian because their mind has been completely twisted by the demiurge to worship an external God instead of loving with compassion everything and seeing the divine in the self and in everything else. Doesn't mean you can't be a dick sometimes. It just means that while you're being a dick, know that you're being a dick to yourself. And that changes so much. It really does. It makes your acts of kindness more sincere, for one thing. So I'm not an anti-Christian. I'm an anti-Orthodox Christian. I'm anti-Catholic. I'm anti-Protestant. I'm anti all of that.
And, you know, from my understanding, a lot of the, in my perspective, truest Christians would be able to get behind you with that too, because, you know, nowhere in the Bible does it say go to church. Like, you must go to church to be a good Christian. The church may be there to help and support you, but you can be a good Christian all on your own by just loving God.
And loving God, well, here's the problem. It's not even loving God. See, that
might have been a little bit of a miss.
The loving God is maybe the text, but the meaning is to love the self. And the self, not the ego to the exclusion of others, but to love the whole of the self, to love the whole of creation as the self. Because that is God. You are that too. You know, the Old Testament Bible has nothing to do with that. The Old Testament Bible is an abusive motherfucker that's saying, do what I say or else. The New Testament God is this loving all thing. It is literally two different religions that have been squished together by this oppressive system. Probably because they wanted to bring them all under one spiritual roof to feed that divine thing and create a socioeconomic system that would rule the world, which they did. They succeeded, by the way. The demiurge won that round, which it often does. It has to. I mean, like we said before, you can't be free without chains. So, again, I'm not an enemy of even the demiurge. I'm not an enemy of that. To make that my enemy means it has power over me, and it doesn't. I want to integrate that. I want to see in myself that demiurge at work. I want to recognize in myself, because that demiurge is really ignorance and fear. See, the demiurge is so busy saying that it is God, worship me. It's doing that because it doesn't really believe that. It knows it's not. But the irony is, it too is God. And so it's really a delusion of denial. It's really the demiurge being afraid that it isn't God, and so therefore everything must worship it. It's this really complicated, like if I was a psychiatrist, like, dude, I'd be making billions of dollars off of this demiurge, because it would just be like, just sit in the chair and just talk, motherfucker. You're broke as fuck. So my enemy is not even Yahweh, because Yahweh is, there are different Yahwehs to different people. So Yahweh, the personified, is a personification of the demiurge, but so is many incarnations of Zeus and Satan. There are many right-hand path incarnations of these beings, which demand worship and servitude on some level. Not all of them. I don't want to make blanket statements, but there is also a version of Yahweh, which is really Jehovah or YHHV. I mean, you know what I mean? Just the letters.
Yeah.
That is meant to mean literally, in the context of their culture, exactly what Brahman means. It means chaos. It means that which cannot be named. It is the same non-dual whole. It is the same monad, the same source that we're all talking about. But the Yahweh of the church, the Yahweh of the temple, the Yahweh of the religion is an egregore that was created by those people, filled with that demiurgical element, which keeps people enslaved. There's a part of me that wants to make that my enemy. But whenever I think about doing that, all it means is that I'm somehow feeding it. For to make that my enemy means I have to admit it's got some power over me, but it doesn't. I don't worry about what Christians think of me. I don't worry about what Jews think of me. You know what I worry about, though? I do worry about being accurate. I don't want to say something that is not said. I don't want to be like, well, you know, the clip-off really means this and blah, blah. I don't want to do that because it's not my thing. I wasn't born with it. But you know what I can talk about? I can talk about that King James version of everything. I can talk about that because I was raised with that. So I can point out where that gets it wrong. And I do. So maybe that's me, like maybe that's my own hang-ups. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. But that is my sincere position of it. Take it or leave it. So I'm not going to, it's not about destroying Yahweh. I'm not about, let's kill God. Look, if that's where you're at, that's cool. I'm not saying I was never there. I'm just going to say that even at the height of my most edgy side, I've always recognized that that position is sort of, and I don't mean this maybe in a nasty way, but it is compensation. It's a compensating attitude. It is what happens when someone is rebelling from the demiurge and has been lured into another incarnation of the demiurge that requires the same kind of tribal worship. The people who say you must destroy Yahweh and be an enemy of the Orthodox Church are playing the same tribal game that the Orthodox Church and the demiurge want you to play. Because what you don't realize is the puppet that's saying destroy them is one of those puppets too. It's just dressing up as the other side so that you end up feeling like you're rebelling. You get to say, my new Sky Daddy is better than that Sky Daddy, but he lives in the basement now. You're just flipping the old right-hand religion into something exactly the same. It's just you wear black and sport pentagrams instead of crucifixes. The irony is I wear black and sport the pentagrams, but I talk the other way. Funny how that works. Because if you actually research the origin of most of these symbols, especially like the Leviathan symbol and all that shit, oh boy, do you have some fun stuff to figure out. When you realize that there's nothing even remotely like what it's been turned into. So it's almost like I'm almost being ironic, if that makes sense. There's an element of irony in my edginess that people don't pick up on, I guess. There is an element of irony in it. It's almost like Elvira. Like Elvira didn't really like, necessarily all that shit that she wore, but it was like a way to make fun of it, and at the same time it looked good. It's like it's a complex thing.
It's a post-irony type deal.
A little bit, because I was gonna say that my truest internal, like not my higher guardian angel, but my internal guru is very much a disheveled Obi-Wan Kenobi dude in a robe in a desert with a staff that is none of this either, with a robotic arm and shit. You know what I mean? Like something I might write about in a story, and I probably will, as like a Mary Sue. That is like the ideal of me in a nutshell. It is not this Darth Vader motherfucker. That is because it's actually more appropriate to walk around in our world dressing the way I do now than in that funky fucking, deserty robe that I talk about. Like I could walk around wearing a trench coat and looking evil and dark, and I get looked at. But at least I get looked at with like I recognize that uniform. Whereas if I walked around with the other one, people would be like, "Don't let that guy in. He probably smells or something." You know what I mean? So like a cross between Mad Max, like a cross between Mad Max and Obi-Wan Kenobi is like my ideal. So
yeah, that's some. I don't think that's crust punk so much as is like crust sage.
I think it's like a guy on the way to Burning Man takes a detour and goes to that apocalypse thing that happens. That's basically the same thing in Arizona.
I would say it's like dude shows up at Burning Man, takes the heroic dose that lasts all of Burning Man from his perspective. From everybody else's perspective, Burning Man happened, he got left alone in the desert, and they came back the next year for the next Burning Man, and he somehow was still there surviving in the desert the whole time.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. I think from my internal, it's more of a, like, Jedi of the Mad Max apocalypse. I think that's sort of how I see myself as a Jedi of the as a dark Jedi of the Mad Max apocalypse. Like fuck y'all. You don't want to come into my dark temple.
The most Conan interpretation of Mad Max.
Acceptable. Way too blend the references, my friend. You get me.
I thought that would tickle you.
Let me do the Mako thing. Oh shit. Okay. But yeah, so I will be doing at some point. I will be doing a video at some point because it is becoming a very large element of my new book is to incorporate some of this Gnostic principle in there. And this is one of the reasons why I call myself a heretic. It's why, like, I'm adding heretic to the front of the list of terms that I use to describe my practice. Because I went from dark mystic and Luciferianness and, demonolator or demon sorcerer. And it's like, you know what? All of those other ones, even non-dual doesn't say it. I am a motherfucking heretic. And I say that because every single orthodox belief system, whether it's right or left hand, because people think left hand is free of orthodoxy. That's some old bullshit. Go into a demonolator website, like a group on Facebook, and say one negative thing about the demons, and holy shit, will you get excommunicated quick. So, I say so a lot tonight. I am a heretic in every culture. And I like that. I like looking at everything, and not as a critic, like, oh, I'm so critical of you. Meaning, I look at things and I go, well, that's cool, but what if? What if you got that wrong? What if we did it this way? What if instead of this love and light shit, we actually sincerely practice love and light while talking down about it the whole fucking time? You want to try that? Because that's actually way, way more fun. Like, instead, like, I don't have a problem with charity and treating people well and never lying and not raping kids and shit. I'm not evil, but I'll be damned if I call everything evil and clutch my pearls at everything that's a little bit, questionable or risque or whatever, like, I am a heretic to everything in every way.
And there's a difference between that and also just being somebody who pisses off a troll, somebody who pisses off all sides just for their own jollies. This is more, and forgive the comparison because I don't mean it the way it's associated, but it's more like an auditor of all.
Oh shit! You just make Eddie's ears just perk like a fucking Doberman that just heard somebody putting a key in a lock, dude. Oh, you said auditing. Uh-oh. I am not grabbing your cans, Eddie. Well, maybe I will, but
just make sure I don't say Engram, whatever I do. Oh shit.
Now my channel's got, why did it suddenly go up 10 viewers?
Tom Cruise, are you here?
No, that's fair a little bit. It's almost like, as much as I hate postmodernism, it's like postmodern spirituality too, because I'm looking at it like, okay, so that's all bullshit in a way. Interesting. Yeah.
You gotta embrace the postmodernism.
Yeah.
But that's just a postmodernist talking.
And Lowland says, DH is right. The Goetic folks are very sensitive about their demons because a lot of them are theistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not yelling at them for it. If that's your path, that's your path. I don't like it. I think it's wrong. But if that's your path, that's your path. If you're theistic, if you worship, if you think that they can do no wrong, you're just playing Christian the other side. You're just playing Christian and you're flipping the fucking... Basically, you're like playing Monopoly, but playing on the back side of the board instead of the front. Looks exactly the fucking same, except instead of Park Place, it's got Place Park.
No, yeah, actually, it's... You've seen how they have a theme for everything, for Monopoly of all things. Of like, here's the communist Monopoly. Here's the millennial going to college
How does that one
Monopoly.
work? Everyone just shares every time they go around? Like,
I don't know. That was a bad example, but I know there is a communist Monopoly that actually has a rule set change, but there is a enter.
I would love to play that just as
Monopoly.
a joke. It would be a fun joke.
Me too, but there's like a enter aesthetic here for fucking what? There's a Scooby-Doo Monopoly. There's a NASCAR Monopoly.
Well, we had like a Lord of the Rings Monopoly, I think.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings
it's all the same fucking shit, but just with a new coat of paint. And yeah, exactly what you're describing with people's practices. It's the same fucking game. You're still aiming for Parks Place. Parks Place just named something different. It's that new coat of paint.
Yep. Break your conditioning, as Alex Jones would say.
Yeah. Buy my superior male supplement enhancement fucking frog punching.
See, so Jasonius Arcanum says, as far as I'm aware, the infernal spirits don't want to be worshipped. Well, that's what I have experienced. So, to both resonate but also be a heretic to that statement, I'm going to say that the operational word that you use that tells me something that you don't realize, maybe, or maybe you will very quickly, or maybe when I say it, you go, oh, wait a minute. Or maybe you'll say, no, I didn't mean it that way. Maybe that's why you added that last part of the phrase. As far as I am aware, put that word in bold, infernal spirits don't want to be worshipped. That's why at least that's what I've experienced. Why did I say to emphasize that word, the? Because you're implying objectively that there is the infernal spirits, that there is one set of them, that they are specific, that they are not in any way personal to you. So you're trying to objectify the egregore. The reality is the archetypes are the absolute, and they are impersonal always. Archetypes are always impersonal. The thief, the king, the judge, they're always impersonal. The personifications of them, however, are many and varied. You can have two distinct, and actually there's way more, two distinct pantheons of the Goetia. You can have the love and light Goetia. You can have the infernal Goetia that does not want worship. You can have the Goetia that's a bunch of demons that want to convert you to evil and bring you into hell and sell your soul. There are, all of them exist. There is no the. Now, I know that some of that, I'm not scolding you, by the way, because I'm sure some of that was just linguistics for your part. But I think there is sort of an unspoken truth that you were admitting there, that you believe. And in my opinion, it's not that there is nothing objective about them. It is that we all see our own personal egregoric version of those archetypes with those masks on them. And sometimes we share them or share a lot in common about them. So, for example, as I've said before, there is a King Paimon archetype. And then there are a bunch of personal versions of that King Paimon, but they all sort of have that same archetype in common. But there is a King Paimon that wants you to sell your soul and worship him, and there's a King Paimon that wants you to stop doing that and will teach you how to be something else. So my position is sort of transcending objective and subjective as if one of them is true and the other one is not. It's not that all are true. It's not that none are true. It's not that one are true. It's that from a transcendent position, you can see how they all fit, like a puzzle. And it's not that they are all true equally, and it's not that they all feed each other, and this is why the language fails, because from a transcendent position, it's not even contradictory. It's that I have no doubt, for example, that you, Jasonium, saw infernal versions of the goetic spirits that don't want worship. And you probably have legitimate experience with those spirits, and those spirits are real. But there are also Christians who have done demonology with those spirits, who tried to put them in boxes and had negative reactions with them. And they're both right. Not because they're both right, but they both saw something real. It's a left hand and a right hand. Both are real. I like that, Jasonium. That's not a bad way to say it. So different aspects, he says, for different situations that occur on one's path, maybe. I'm comfortable with that up to a pretty far point. I'd walk that path for a while, for sure. And which is why I offer them as services or as things that I can help you work with. But it is meant ultimately to be a stepping stone. It's theurgy. And sometimes for some people, theurgy means selling your soul as a submissive idiot, either to a Yahweh God, which really people don't realize when you're saying, you know, I am God's this and that, you're selling your soul to the Yahweh God instead of the Satan God.
I am the sheep and he is my shepherd.
Yeah, that's not selling your soul.
Prune me for harvesting time.
So, I mean, you know, yes, so there are different manifestations, there's different egregores, different masks for the higher archetype. Some of them are right hand, some of them are left hand, some of them are good, some of them are bad. And this is why, if you notice, all of the gods from antiquity had good days and bad days. Zeus could equally be a god of justice and fertility and bounty, as much as he was a god of just total bastardry and rape and
yeah,
all that shit.
I think Susan Wojcicki, he meant anthropomorphic non-consensual hug time.
Sure. Non-consensual anthropomorphic hug time. I don't even know where to begin or end with that. But I love it. So yeah. No, I'm down with that statement. I like that statement. I think you've got a point there. And I think when we see it that way, that allows for exactly what you said to be true. You know, there is a version of Christianity that says that the demons, when they're called fallen angels, they're not evil. It's that their job is to punish people in hell. And that punishment is a refinement that will eventually save them. Which, if you look at the Chinese and Japanese and other Asian visions of hell and the afterlife, it's exactly the same thing. That the highest, I forget what his name is, but the highest demon of hell, the king of hell in Chinese mythology, is actually the alternative form of one of the most compassionate and benevolent Buddhas that existed. It is literally like the most compassionate guy acting like a dick to teach you. Because at some point you're purified after all of that suffering in hell, and then he takes his mask off and you get taken into the perfect dimension of heaven or whatever the fuck. I mean, why is it that these themes keep happening over and over and over again? Why? That's the lesson. That's where the fun part is. That's where Joseph Campbell comes in and he points out all of these exactly the same things. And how they get perverted and twisted and turned into systems of control. So that we're really only left with two perspectives. The one that's liberating you somehow, and the one that's trying to enslave you somehow. And then those two perspectives eventually meet again, so that they're both parts of the challenge that eventually teaches you what you are. You need to be a slave so that you can be set free, so that you can learn to free yourself. Maybe you need to enslave some people for a while. You need to be all sides of the equation so that you fully manifest that fractal for what it is. And I'm starting to run low, Fleshy. So,
Oh, only just now? I've been on fumes for the past 40.
ooh, yeah, I think I ran over, didn't I? I ran way over. So, all right, guys. So for everybody who is joining us for the first time, I am not this much of a dick. I am way worse, actually, in real life. I appreciate you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this this conversation, whether you agree with everything I said or not. I hope it made you think. That's really all it's about, because I don't care if you agree with me, because I don't care if you disagree with me. If you disagree with me, this is my life. I'm not living it your way, and you shouldn't live your life my way. I just want you to think about it the way I think about it. I want you to think about it and hopefully, like, become a heretic too. Be a heretic to the person you were 5 years ago. Ooh, that's really powerful.
Ooh.
So, all right, guys, let's give them the final. If you guys are interested in supporting my work, please, 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 please. And Pinhead is the Buddha, says Scotty Hamilton. Absolutely, you got it. If you read the stuff behind all of the Cenobite stuff, that's not far off. All right. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all. If you want to support my work, go to the Linktree link in the description of this video. They finally agreed to give me back my shit a few weeks ago. You can find ways to support me there financially if you wish. Every little bit helps. $3 a month or just $3 one time. Super chats all help. You can buy my services even, although my services I'm very selective about these days. I don't do rituals just for ritual's sake anymore. I really got to feel called to do them, and I'm more likely to talk you out of them than try to do them for you. My meditation courses are also available, but I like it when you buy products. I like it when you buy stuff like tapestries. I've got a bunch of them to choose from. Fleshy's got one back there. I've got one here. I've got t-shirts. Some of them are funny. I've got my books. That stuff I like because you know what? I like it when you get something and you're not just throwing money at me. As much as I feel like I earn your money by doing these talks, I like when you get a thing that you can hold and that you can appreciate and that you can use in ritual and all of that. That's really where it is. I want you guys to use it in ritual if you can. So anyway, guys, until next time, Fleshpriest, show him the third eye.
Oh, hold on. The glasses are... There we go. We're going to make that work.
All right, good enough. Give him the old third eye. Thank you, Camilla, for the Linktree link there. So if you guys want to support me, like, share, and subscribe, or fuck it, give me a downvote and piss off the algorithm. That works too. Until next time, mind the shadows and...
Tell your friends. Warn your enemies.
Fuck you.
Good night, fuckers.
Good night, fuckers. Oh, fuck. Where's the button? There it is. All right. Thank you, Freshie. I